I just want to say thank you to the Windsor Oaks students for being here too. Appreciate learning about your program.
I'm glad that took a little bit longer than I had expected because I still can't get the timing of board meetings down. So I had told them 7:45 and they rushed here and they got here on time. So it's amazing. Tonight, I'd like to celebrate Sherry Jacob. Click. Thank you. She's our workability coordinator. She joined us in this position last school year, so 2022. Workability, if you're not familiar with it, it's a partnership that we have with the Department of Rehabilitation and also through a workability grant where we are supported in placing students who have IEPs and 504s into jobs within our community. In addition to placing students into these jobs, Sherry has done a beyond tremendous job of just supporting these students while they're on campus, kind of getting them ready to go to a job. How do you do an interview? I mean, she's been phenomenal in this job, and it shows it when we currently have 64 students in placements, which is the highest that we've ever had. So I'd like to welcome Sherry up to the podium. She can talk a little bit more about it. And then we also have one of our students who's placed in one of our community partnerships to share it as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So when I was hired for the workability coordinator last year, it was an amazing experience. I really like helping kids out, and that's one of my main goals is that, you know, sometimes we don't focus on the students that don't have the opportunity or the openness to be able to go out and look for jobs or fill out applications. And so we take the steps to really focus on supporting them on those processes so that they can go out independently on their own as they leave high school. A lot of our students do one job during the first semester and then move to another job in the second semester. It could be like a food service job, or it could be in a grocery store. So it gives them the opportunity to say, oh, that's not for me. And we have Windsor is amazing. All of the community supporters, we now have 48. It was 38, but we had our amazing career fair at the school, and I was able to pick up some other people to join our program, and it just gives the kids a lot of opportunities. There's 8 more that are going on there, which is awesome. So I'd like to introduce Edgui. He's one of my students that we've taken a lot of steps in focusing on school and giving him something to look forward to and to really, base his education and his future on. And this is Edgui.
Hi, my name is Edwin Garcia and I'm a junior from Windsor High School. I started working on the workability program last year, and I've learned new skills like how to properly work with others and talk to people. I've gained more confidence and it's been helping me grow as a man. I'm very thankful for the opportunity Sherry and the workability program have gave me. And thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a blessed day. Yeah.
I also wanted to share that one of our students who's currently placed at Roundtable was just awarded Employee of the Month. So that's super exciting as well. So Sherry's done a tremendous job of really growing this program, and I hope it continues. It's a great opportunity for our students. So do you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. I was wondering how this program came to be because it sounds really wonderful.
So I know Trevor was our workability coordinator before that. Sherry, do you know any of the history on our program?
Like the different people, or how did it start? I don't know how it first came to Windsor High.
We could talk about
those guys, yeah. Yeah, Austin knows.
Make sure. So workability, it's a federal program, so it's federally funded. Revenue comes into the state, and the state funds us. And so, Sherry, do you want to talk kind of like what workability is? I think that's kind of the root of the question. So because it's a federal program, it's been around for a while, but in Windsor, we've only had it for the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, so it's grant-based. We have 2 different programs. We have Workability 1, which is a program that serves students 15 years old to 18 years old. And I serve, the budget's always been the same as long as I've known. So we've always served 10 students. I like to use the Workability program for my 15-year-olds because the other program that we have is the Department of Rehabilitation. So the process for that is the students have to fill out the forms with their information and parent consent. They have an interview through the Department of Rehabilitation as just to get to know you, wanting to know what their future looks like and what they want to do. And then we go through the payroll process, and with that program has a little bit more monies because it's a different program. And so last year I was able to place 19 students. This year I'm able to place 40 students. So I try to, like I said, keep my 15-year-olds in the ones so they have an opportunity to get a job experience. They get 40 hours a year, which is not a lot, but when you spread it out like a couple days after school or one day a weekend, it works really well for them. The DOR kids, that Department of Rehabilitation, are 16 to 20 years old, and they get 200 hours. So it's really nice. First semester, maybe work at Round Table Pizza, and then second semester also maybe switch and work somewhere else so they can get an array of experience.
Thank you. This is
You're
really
welcome.
wonderful work.
Mhm.
Are there other comments from the board?
All right, thank you for having us.
Okay. Are there any public comments? Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant public comment on the previous item, on the presentations from the staff and principals. Any public comment? Nope. Okay, then we will move on to public comments on non-agenda items, item 3.3. So please step to the podium if you'd like to make a public comment on a non-agenda item. Thank you.
This is on perfect, and my 3-minute timer is where? Right here? Perfect. Let's go. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tim Zotter. I'm a parent of 2 Windsor Unified School District students, one who's graduated and one who's at North Bay Met. And I live 5-minute bike ride from North Bay Met. I'm here to talk about the North Bay Met decision that was made in the last meeting. Thank you for those of you that responded to my email. Good to see you all. Beto, nice to meet you. My biggest issue with the decision made last time was there wasn't really good communication to the parents and the stakeholders that are intimately involved in the school. I just saw these wonderful presentations of all these different schools that were here, and that was fantastic. I wish that same level of participation happened when we made that decision. For those that don't remember, we made a decision that cut in-person class time 80%. We got rid of 50% of staff. And they're around, but that's kind of the de facto what we did, and we changed the name of the school without a lot of parent or student or stakeholder communication. North Bay Met's a special place. It's a special place for special kids. And it's a place for kids who don't always fit in and other schools can fit in North Bay Met. I think we need to consider some of the questions we didn't consider, like what do we do with students that don't fit in with the new program? And when students need access to services or school lunches, what are we going to do with them? And kids that need social interaction more than just one day a week, how are we going to help them? So we should have included the parents, the students, and the community in this process. We still can. I'm asking you to consider to reconvene the community and the stakeholders on that decision and how we can improve upon the decision that was made and how we can keep people involved in it. Big picture learning is about working together and learning as part of the process. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your next move. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa McKinney, and I'm here also to talk about North Bay Met. I have a student there who's a junior. And I just, want to echo a lot of what Tim had to say about, we are watching these amazing presentations about these amazing schools. North Bay Met is an amazing school, but I wonder, would these schools be able to do all the things that they've done with an 80% reduction of classroom time and a 50% reduction of school staff? It seems wildly unfair that parents were not involved in this decision at all. And we have a community of parents at North Bay Met who are very resourceful, who are very actively involved, who are very concerned about our children. I understand that North Bay Met represents a small number of school students in the school district, but they are still students of this district. They still deserve the same time and attention and thoughtfulness that all these other schools receive. the program that Windsor High was talking about like kind of learning in the community and leaving to learn, that's the basis of big picture learning, is experiential learning and having these opportunities. And while I know those opportunities aren't necessarily going away, the way it's going to look for our kids' academics is that they will spend one day a week at school, and during that one day, they're going to have 1 hour with a teacher. I mean, I don't know about y'all, if you got students, I think the pandemic taught us, I'm not a teacher. I think the pandemic taught us that like my child does not thrive on independent study, which is what NBMA is turning into. And, at this point in time, my child is a junior, he's going into his senior year. Like, am I going to switch his school because independent study is not going to be a success for him? I just think that's a setup for failure for my student and many others who are in the same situation. So I just want to echo the thoughts that have already been expressed by Tim in terms of, I think we warrant the respect and the time of this community to have another conversation about what's happening with our school. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there other public comments? Please come up.
I'd just like to take the time to thank some readers.
Can you say your name?
Oh, George Horwittle.
We know you, but for everybody.
Sorry. At Maddie, we had Read Across Maddie, and we had 54 slots to fill. We wanted each class read to twice. We had the police and the fire, and Chris Hoth was there, and the town was there, and the students from Windsor High School were there, 6 students. And just like to thank some district office employees that were there also. Jillian, we had a cancellation. We asked her in the morning, will you increase and add a reading slot? She said, sure. Jeremy was there, read to, I think, 3 classes plus 1 with Patricia that was recorded. And if you guys can put that on the district website, Jen Grady recorded the 2 of them in class. And I'd just like to thank everybody. It was a great event, and just love the cooperation. And the firefighters are there every year. The police is there every year. And it's just an amazing event. And just like to thank everybody, including the district office. Look forward to next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments? Oh,
I forgot one quick thing. The star of the show was Patricia. She volunteered to read to each grade level, plus an SDC class.
Wow.
5 20-minute slots is a lot, and she held up. And if you guys are free in May, there's a patriotic assembly at Maddie that is truly amazing. And guess who's going to sing the national anthem this year? Patricia.
Thank you. Okay, so as you all know, we're not allowed to comment on public comments, but however, I do want to say for those of you that came tonight to speak up about North Bay Met, that we did listen, carefully, and we will take your comments into account. So thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. So next up, we have item 3.4, which is the report from our student board members, Meadow Graves and Kite RC. And I just want to say, we missed you in our last meeting because it just wasn't as much fun without you.
Well, thank you for that. I know we bring the fun to a board meeting. No, but we did have a huge amount of events happen from last meeting, which we weren't at, to this meeting. But I did really want to highlight the play that happened, the play that went wrong. It was kind of amazing. Not kind of, it was super amazing. It was very funny. It was a great time. Sold out show all 3 days. Everybody loved it. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. We also have our Midnight Madness, which was a basketball event we held which was also very successful. We had a bunch of different teams come from different grade levels, all played each other. Big fundraiser for our school. It was very good. I don't know if you want to talk more about.
No, I mean, George spoke wonderfully about the only thing I was going to mention. So
I did want to add about the Read Across America. We had some leadership students go out and text all of us like the night before if anybody can fill in some slots, and we were able to get some people. So I want to shout out to Izzy and everybody who did that. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That was quick. Yeah. And Meadow, do you have anything else to add? No? Uh-oh, you're very quiet today. Okay, so next up is we're going to go to the superintendent's report.
I'm going to be short as well today, but I just want to take a moment to also acknowledge someone who has been instrumental in making our schools a safer place for students. As many of you might know, we received a threat against our middle school that was luckily not real a couple weeks back. While we quickly determined that the threat was unfounded and our students were not in any danger, we still had to activate all of our resources as though it were real. I can't express how proud I was to see the order and swiftness with which the staff at Windsor Middle, along with the staff that was there to assist, truly was all hands on deck. We had high school staff there, we had district office, it was a lot of people who came to help. But this type of thing doesn't happen without great leadership and practice. While many could be commended for their work that day, I'd like to recognize Pete Sullivan, our Director of Human Resources. Pete's been at the forefront of our district safety initiatives and has made preparation a cornerstone of those initiatives. He's created a district safety committee that meets monthly and includes not only district people, but also folks from the town, Windsor Police, and emergency services. Not necessarily a fun task, having to constantly think about the worst thing that could happen at our schools. But he's done that, and he's done it well. So without his prep work with our sites, the response to that unfounded threat at Windsor Middle would have looked a lot different. So please join me in giving Pete a round of applause for the work that he's done. Of course you can.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I want to further add that none of this would be possible without, number one, the help from Angela and Windsor Middle, and Maddie Cleaver. She brought the system that we currently employ for our request reunion process to the district. She helped facilitate getting all of the paperwork completed, and with Jen's help, thank you, Jen, putting all of the boxes together for each of the sites and really making it possible for us to have an intact process that makes sense. So thanks to Maddie and to the staff at the middle school for all of their work on this.
This week, that's my report. That's it, or this month, I should say.
That was quick also. So next up is staff association reports.
And I got a text from Jeff Hardy that said he wouldn't be here tonight, but he said all was good. And I don't see any representative from CSEA in the audience.
Okay, then in that case, we'll just move on. Board of Trustees report.
Well, with all this extra time.
First off, they got a couple things, couple quick. George, thanks for putting a lot of that out there. I know that a lot of people were beating the bush, getting everybody out there to read and stuff. Becky and I we've got a 2-month-old at the house. And so I'm remembering what it's like to juggle little ones and all the things that they want every hour of every day. And so we weren't able to help this year with that. On a little hockey note, the Windsor High School, the athletic department, they're going to be having their golf tournament coming up here, the charitable golf tournament. And just as I did last year, I would like to throw out to the community, if there's any 4 people out there that think they can beat the team of Carnation, Austin, and we don't even care who the other 2 people are. And try and take that first place trophy away from Austin, really. I only have to contribute 3 times on the driving part, but anyhow, it goes to a really good cause for all the kids in the high school and help. It's a great fundraiser. It's a great time. It's a great time for everybody to get together and have a lot of fun out at Windsor Golf Course. And so I encourage you all to get online, get on the website. Hopefully it's on the very front page of the website, and we're gonna have to work on that front page. There's some things we got to start adding to that front page. But nonetheless, I encourage you to, anybody in the community that's listening, to join in on that thing there. Two things now that are of major importance. One, I asked my grandson if I could have permission to say something. And for 30 years, I've always wanted I knew that our kids in Windsor, I have an immense amount of pride, good pride, in our town, in our kids, and their abilities. But I always wondered, why were our test scores not indicative of what I always felt intrinsically were our kids' abilities, right? So anyhow, a lot of you guys know who Shaquille O'Neal is, and he has a little phrase that I heard him say one time that says, he said to his kids, if you want some of my cheese, you got to get degrees, right? I memorized that the first time he said it. I'm thinking, that is a great thing. So Caden was over at our house and we were talking. I said, Caden, how you doing on your math scores? And I said, because Papa can't give you anything if you don't know how to add it up and handle it. And I go, so how's your test scores? And he's going like, well, not so good. And I go, really? And by the way, I asked him permission if I could tell this, because this is kind of important. And he said, not so good. And I go, well, what are we doing to fix that? And he goes, well, they have this new thing at school and they helped me. Instead of doing this one class, they gave me extra help in this other class. So they got me in this other class. And he goes, and now I'm getting A's in my math. And I said, dude, that's awesome. And so as a grandparent, I'm very excited that my grandson's math is doing well and that he's got the extra help that he needed to help him. And I just got to tell you guys, and I'm sure all you teachers have seen it. When a student, I asked him, how was your scores? And he's like, I'm getting like D's and F's. And I'm like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, and I said, what are we doing about that? And he said, well, they have a program in another class, and I'm in that class now instead of the other one, and now I'm getting A's. And so as a grandparent, I was pretty excited, but as a trustee, I was more excited because Brian knows we as a board are holding everybody responsible now in marketable ways for our kids to be to be mathematically literate. You can't be financially successful at any level in life. This is just me speaking, but I'll debate anybody on this. If you can't do math, you can't figure out interest rates, you can't figure out a mortgage, you can't figure out anything. You don't know if it's a good deal or a bad deal. You've got to be able to do math. You have to. So our kids leaving our school being mathematically, and I want to translate that into the ability to be financially literate, is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. I'm super happy that our administration from top to bottom is bought in, that our kids are going to be mathematically literate, right? And we're doing anything and everything that we can do to help our kids be literate. And I just want to let you know that, so I'm personally starting to see in my own family that the things we're implementing are starting to matter, right? And that makes my heart full. Continuing on with that, and I know this, and I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me for a minute because this kind of goes to something else. My dad was a superintendent of schools. He started out way back when, there's a reason why I'm going to read this up. My dad grew up in Boston, in Roxbury. He grew up in the ghetto. And when he went to school, he kind of went through a North Bay Met type of thing. It was LTI. My dad, now he's passed, and he's gone, but he was going to school and he was learning how to be a bookmaker, how to bind books together. They used to, before they had these, they used to put them together the old fashioned way with thread, glue, and paper. My dad learned how to be a bookmaker. That's what he did through his school, and played a bunch of sports and other things too, but that was what he was doing. And he thought that was kind of cool. And then he was in the Marines. He met my mom, and she's like, no chance. You're not making books and stuff. And he did not have a very good education. He didn't take advantage of the other classes that he had. So he went back to junior college and basically started with beginning everything, and went to the junior college. He worked over at the community hospital at night, cleaning bedpans, worked his way through. Ended up graduating from college, went down to San Francisco State, got his teaching credential, administrative credential, anyhow, shrinking up a whole bunch of things, ended up becoming a teacher, vice principal, then principal, principal superintendent, and then superintendent, then he retired. And then he retired and they kept pulling him back in. And my dad loved it. He loved kids, he loved education. He loved the fact that it was a thing that helped free him to be somebody. And so the other day, some of us on the board, we had the time, we were able to go over to North Bay Met, and Meadow gave her presentation. And it was stellar. It was amazing. I learn more about Meadow all the time. And everything I learned is that much more endearing. Now, for full disclosure, I'm not saying these things because she gave me this Dunkin' Donuts thing, right? But I didn't talk at her deal because I was afraid I was going to choke up, and Bill beat me to it, and he was blobbing all over everybody. And so I didn't think it was good for two older dudes blobbing all over everybody. But I was thinking in my head, Meadow, she wants to be a teacher. She wants to go to school and she wants to be a teacher. And I was drawing a lot of equivalence to kind of how my dad came up and how Meadow's come up. Some of the same similar challenges that my dad had, Meadow's overcome. And I was thinking when I was listening how proud my dad would be to hear a student go through the adversity she's gone through and come out on the other side so bright and shiny, and excellent is just the word. And my dad always loved this phrase. It said, if there's anything that's virtuous, praiseworthy, of good report, we seek after these things. And Meadow, you are emblematic of those things. I know that your financial situation is such that there's going to be some struggles. And I thought about this, and this went in my head, and I said to myself, this is my dad on the other side inspiring me. And so I want you to know that my dad is going to donate to you $10,000, $2,500 a year over your next 4 years of you going to school. So that way you can reach your goals, and my dad is going to help you do some of the things that you can do so that way you can get through in that program. I just want you to know, man, we are all so proud of you, and that, we would listen to the little kids over there and we listen to these bigger kids over here. Too often we watch too many things on TV in the national levels and state levels, and it's depressing as heck. And then we see you kids and how you're doing, and it just makes us think, hey man, things are actually going to be okay. And you're such an awesome example to everybody. And my dad would just absolutely love the way you live your life. And I know that he wants to help you, and this is his way of doing it. And you deserve every good thing in life that you get. And so that is kind of concluding my very long trustees report, because everybody else was so missing stuff tonight. And but anyhow, Meadow, we're very, very proud of you. We wish you nothing but the best and success, and you deserve it all.
Oh, no, you.
I know I'm not supposed to talk because it's like the report. But I learned from the best guys.
You do.
I don't have the words to thank you. I guess the fist bump will do, but I also don't have the composure that would keep if I tried. So thank you. Thank you so much. And anything that Rich says that I'm growing in and that I have grown in. And a night of appreciation, so I guess I might as well add another one. I could not have gotten to where I am or the growth I've done without the board and the way that they showed me the potential I do truly have. And never treated me or looked at me as if I was less than because of a circumstance or because of an academic stance. And they saw me and they respected me because of my visions and they let me see them out. And because of that, I was able to grow. And for all of you, I'm truly so grateful.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of speechless right now. So I don't know if I can even follow that up with anything. But I'm going to share one event that's coming up that I feel is a very important event. And I would encourage our board to go, our staff in our district to go. And this event is called the Youth Perspective that is presented by LOCIEN. And LOCIEN is an organization in Sonoma County that seeks to elevate the voices of diverse people and to talk about issues that are important. So the Youth Perspective is a chance for the youth to talk about issues that are important to them. And I feel that as adults, especially here on the board and in the district, with very good intentions, we tend to frame everything from our lens, from our perspective. But this is a chance for the youth to speak. And I went last year, and last year was held at LC Ellen. And I was pretty speechless listening to, first of all, how intelligent and talented our youth are, but also how much they suffer. They suffer from racism and, discrimination and fears about getting into college, fears about not having the career that they dream about because they get discriminated against. And so I really encourage all of you to go and really listen to them because this is one of the few events in Sonoma County that's about very important issues where it's 100% youth organized. So they did the work, to put this on. This is taking place on Thursday, March 28th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Windsor High School gym. So I encourage you all to go. If you want to get tickets, you can go to LOCIEN. Their website is LOCIEN. And the other thing I want to say in connection to this is that I was very surprised to read in the Press Democrat recently that Sonoma County officials have also declared racism as a public health crisis. So it's a very serious issue that, it's gone to this point that it's now declared as something that it's absolutely tied to the health of people of color in Sonoma County. And I think that that's so important for all of us here on this board to have that recognition to, continue to look for ways to support, especially students of color in their academic careers and to look at, what are the obstacles that they face? And more importantly, how do we remove those obstacles so that they can have flourishing academic careers? So I just wanted to mention that for my report and ask the rest of the board if you have other items that you want to report out on.
Okay, I'll go next. I had this whole list and now I'm gonna have to rearrange the list because Meta was on there. And I too want to just show my appreciation for what you've done and what you've brought to the board. I mean, it's been amazing having you on this board. Your presentation, I thought was very honest. I kept writing those down. It's very honest, poised, and I really appreciate what you have done. And in that vein, I don't have. My dad doesn't have $10,000 to give you, but what I can offer you is the experience of nearly 30 years in education. If you have any questions or need a mentor or something in the education field, I offer that to you 100% because I think we need teachers like you. We need you. And we need you here in Windsor. You're not going anywhere. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Which you can't renege on now. Okay, you've done that. So, well, yeah, exactly. You're on record now. So that's that. I had a whole list of other things. There was a We Foundation breakfast fundraiser that Stephanie and I and Jeremy and I think Jenny went to, and they raised. And who else am I missing?
Brian.
Oh, Brian was the MC. Oh, he was amazing. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought there's no way this guy's going to pull this off. Because you were following in the footsteps of Michael Ryan. You know, there's no way. It's not going to happen. But you did a great job. He was getting money out of the people. And are you sure you don't want to go up to, you know, the 1,500 level or 2,000 level? You know, so you did a good job. And it was great. You know, they raised a lot of money for scholarships for our seniors, and I think we'll be hearing from them a little later, maybe on a little different topic. We'll be hearing from them a little later in the program. So that was awesome. What else? I walked through Maddie Washburn with Patricia to view the first and second grade classrooms. I wasn't able to make the Read Across America thing because I was actually in another classroom subbing. So I had to get, you know, I was like, yeah, gotta do what you gotta do. But I'm glad that was a success. The last thing I wanted to bring up was sort of my aha moment in my subbing. So now I'm going to maybe kind of do a Rich thing, from my experience. So I'd been subbing up in Cloverdale in a fourth grade class off and on, and this class is a really tough class, and it was to the point where one day I just had enough, and I actually saw the teacher afterward, and I told him, I said, I won't sub in this class again. There's too many behavior disruptions. They're rude. I can't teach this way. There were 24 kids in that class. So he said, well, you know, I have this thing I have to go to. Can you do it one more time if I have my wife in the classroom to help you out? I said, okay. Now, granted, his wife is a retired teacher, granted. But I said, okay. So I went back in there that day, started off the day, and it was a little rough getting going. But as soon as she came in the room, we were able to get maybe 3 times the amount of work done as I could by myself. Then I thought, this is my aha moment. This isn't rocket science, people. If we have more adults in the classroom, we're going to get better results out. And I've even thought, well, how can we do that? Well, we have instructional assistants that maybe we could utilize in a different way. And this was a fourth grade class. Now, I know we're already doing that in TK and kindergarten. I know we already have that. But what I'm sort of throwing out to Jeremy is, have you thought about extending that to maybe first, second, and beyond? If there's some way we can get that extra body, I can't tell you how much of a difference it makes. That person can be putting out a fire that I maybe never saw, or that grows into a bigger fire that I have to put out. It's something we really need to consider moving forward. We can do all that. We can have counselors. We can have all these restorative justice, all these different programs in place. But really, to me, it became very, very clear in that moment of clarity that it's just the number of eyeballs on the situation. So I'm going to throw it out to you. Is that something that maybe you've thought of?
We've talked about it. I mean, that'd be ideal, right? The real, I won't call it an issue, but the hurdle is it's an expensive solution. It doesn't mean it wouldn't be a successful solution. And we're trying to move in a direction where we give the sites more autonomy over making these types of solutions, or decisions, not solutions, making these types of decisions. So if you do the math, for us, district cost of a teacher, we just throw out a general number. It's about $120,000. For an instructional aide, let's say 3 hours a day, we're probably talking in the realm of $30,000. I was thinking 20 for 3 hours a day. right? So you six aides for the cost of a teacher. So I guess the reason I bring it up is because there's constantly discussions about class size, right? You add a teacher, you can reduce class size, or you keep class sizes at, let's say, 24. Like you said, you add the instructional aides. You look at reading intervention teachers. Is that the way? Is it better to have the instructional aides? So all these conversations are happening, Paul. We haven't acted upon this specific thing, but we have talked about it. It's why we have them in TK and K. But I hear what you're saying. Why not do it at every grade level? And I think it's a conversation to be had. And I know at the previous, I wasn't at the last LCAP meeting, but I know Brian did bring this up, instructional aides in classrooms. And at that meeting, there weren't a lot of individuals who were in support of, not support, but didn't place as a high priority. But I would say there were probably not as many teachers at that meeting as there were other types of, staff member, correct, Brian? Yeah. So definitely something we can look into. I mean, I'm talking around the question, right? Because I don't have an answer specifically for you, but we have talked about it.
Right. I mean, you see, it's expensive, but I think we have to afford it, or we have to find a way to make it work. I'm 100% convinced now, just from my own experience, that it would work if you maybe somehow rotated those just during the core academics. That's the only time that she was there was during core academics.
Got it.
And I got 3 times the amount of work out of them than I did by myself when I was subbing in there. So there is something to, I don't know, maybe that's my pulpit that I'm on. I don't know, but that's what I see. I see we have to get that ratio down during that core academic time. And maybe you don't need the reading intervention teacher. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I know there are questions that Brian's trying to answer with LCAP and so forth, but I would make a plea. I would put my plea in that direction.
Well, I think there are other things that we could look at potentially. We used to have a volunteer coordinator, right? You can harness the parents in your community and whatnot. So I think there's lots of conversations that we can have.
Ways we got to,
Yeah, and I think that we're committed to having those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any other reports or comments?
Yeah, I was actually planning to talk for a while, but now I don't think I'm going to because I just don't know. We've had a lot of long reports, but I did want to second the Youth Perspectives event that's happening at Windsor High School. I think it's going to be a really good event. It's on the 28th. I'm definitely going. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that.
I just need to clarify one thing real quick. I may have misspoke or said something a little bit funny. The $10,000 donation, it's in my father's name because he was a lifelong educator. So, and he had 7 children. So he didn't have anything left over. So it's in his name. It's in his name. Joseph Francis Carnation, Cometto. There we go. All right.
Thank you.
I do want to make one comment. I know this is like not, and we already spoke, but based off of what Paul was saying, although I am just in after school care, bigger groups of children are much easier, sometimes even calmer when there's another adult in the room, just because they know that the presence of another person is there, and they know the likelihood of them wanting to do something that is not normally accepted is going to go down. But with the ECE thing at the high school as the pathway, maybe it could be an internship possibility or like an active, this is what you are looking into, as getting the ratios down because there are less requirements for an internship. And I know we're not coming to answers now, but I just
you
want
come
to
up for my job? What are you trying to do up there?
maybe someday.
Yeah, agree, Matt. That's a great idea.
Thank you. Okay, so I think there's nothing else, right? No? So then we're going to move on to item 3.8, approval of minutes. And is there a motion to approve the minutes from February the 15th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 15th.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rich.
I would just make the correction. I think it's supposed to be 2024, and so we should adjust that from 2023.
Oh, okay, thank you. And All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That passes. So next up, we're going to have employee recognitions, and this item is presented by Pete Sullivan. And I think after this item, we should take a 3-minute break because I personally need a little break just to stretch.
Thank you. So tonight, for the staff recognitions, we're going to be recognizing 2 staff members from Calmech Language Academy. And I want to remind the board that we will be doing last month's celebration was for the high school, and we will be presenting at the high school at the end of this month, so the last week. And then we will be attending a staff meeting at Cali in April, and Jen and I will make sure that you have those dates for the attendance for this meeting. So tonight, I like how Lydia did this. We're gonna keep you guessing until the very end. So I'm gonna start with the classified school employee recognition, and this is a paraprofessional instructional aide. It is an honor to celebrate this Cali classified nominee's exceptional dedication for her outstanding contributions to our school and to the Windsor Unified community. This nominee has consistently demonstrated exceptional work performance, active involvement in the school and Windsor Unified community, remarkable leadership, and unwavering commitment to her responsibilities to the Cali students. This person has exhibited exceptional dedication and professionalism in her role at our school. Her commitment to excellence is evident in her work leading our school's Spanish reading intervention groups through a push-in and pull-out model, and her leadership in guiding her reading intervention team. She is in constant communication with our homeroom teachers, every grade level she serves, ensuring that she works collaboratively with every teacher to help the students meet their academic and reading goals. Beyond her regular duties, this person has been actively involved in various school and community activities. Her enthusiasm to contribute to extracurricular events and community outreach programs has greatly benefited our school and fostered positive relationships with the community. Her commitment for helping us remember our Hispanic roots and heritage is evident weekly through her commitment to teaching folkloric dance to bilingual students at Cali. And she and her students bring excellent cultural light and recognition at events in the Windsor Unified community, parades, ELAC meetings, and graduations. Her passion for transferring the Hispanic cultural passion and roots to her students is evident. This person has consistently demonstrated strong leadership skills and a commitment to the well-being of our school. Her ability to inspire and motivate others and her willingness to take the additional responsibilities have positively impacted the overall school environment. Her intervention reading team looks to her for guidance in their work and planning. Her leadership skills led to help start a Zumba program for Cali families and teachers and organize several Zumba events during our Move-a-thon at Cali. You do not have to ask her for help. She always anticipates, sees the big picture, and is ready to jump in for help. This person exemplifies the qualities of outstanding classified school employee. Her commitment to excellence, leadership, and involvement in school and community make her a deserving candidate for the Classified School Employee Recognition nomination. It is with immense gratitude that we recognize Patricia Guzman. All right. And for the certificated, tonight we would like to acknowledge and celebrate an exceptionally dedicated and committed staff member who is a cornerstone of our educational community at our campus. This special person has exhibited exemplary skills and compassion in her role, going above and beyond to ensure our students' academic and emotional well-being. Her ability to sense the state of urgency in various student situations has not only averted potential crises, but also played a crucial role in preventing situations from escalating by advocating for students who need emotional help and a safe place. This person dedicates her free time to the students who need it the most during breaks and helps them academically, ensures they all have lunch, materials, and are lesson ready. One of the staff's outstanding contributions is her special care for Cali campus, which extends beyond the classroom. She has transformed some areas of our campus into vibrant gardens, demonstrating her commitment to nurturing the minds and environment surrounding our students. This person involves students in this process, fostering a sense of ownership and pride in their school community. In addition to her horticultural endeavors, this staff member has taken the responsibility of being a safe school ambassador leader on our campus without overthinking it. When the opportunity was presented to her, she said, "Yes, I'll do it." Her quiet demeanor conceals a powerful inner wisdom reflected in every action she takes. Students and staff benefit from her calm presence and reassurance in any situation. It is with immense gratitude that we recognize our 6 through 8 special education case manager, Jane Ellen Kovacevic, acknowledging her tireless efforts, dedication, and positive impact on the Cali campus community. Her commitment to the well-being of our students and the enhancement of our learning environment exemplifies the spirit of excellence we strive for at our institution. Congratulations. Thank you.
So at this point, I would like to take a little 3-minute break. Misunderstanding because I have talked to Jeremy about how to report out the students. And I was going to say like one simple statement, but then I realized that there was more to it. Like, yeah. So anyways, I was like, oh, there's more to it. There's always more to everything that I think.
pathway where students can learn early childhood education, work in our preschools, and then hopefully eventually become teachers for us. The other courses are a computer science course that one of our teachers was very interested in doing. We're, of course, with our Prop 28 funds, we're always looking at expanding our arts offerings. So that's the AP Art History. And then when we polled students on whether they were interested in AP Environmental Science versus just regular environmental science, overwhelmingly, they wanted to have the AP course offering. So like with all of our courses, we send out requests to the students to see what they're interested in and then try to provide those courses.
Great, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
I just, under 4.1, our personnel, I just want to take a moment. She's not here, but I would be remiss if I don't take the opportunity real quick to mention that Marie Gannister, she's retiring. And I don't know if Marie was here before I started or if I came after she was here, but we were together way back in the beginning, before Windsor was even a school district, the high school was going. Her son Gavin was my first heavyweight champion wrestler. I've got to know Marie really well. I hold her right up there in the highest of esteem of teachers in this district that over a career has made just an incredible impression, a lifelong impression on everybody that she's ever been around in her orbit. We all know people. There's some people you meet and you know for a day, a week, a season, and then there's some you meet and you just never forget them. Mostly, I mean, the good and then some people. But anyhow, Marie is just one of those people that whoever she came in contact with, she added value to your life. And this has nothing to do with even, I know some of you are thinking, yeah, it's because she was cooking for you all the time, right? No, that was all really good too. But Marie she's what I call the 1950s version of teacher. Man, she put 36 hours a day into every student, did everything that she could to make everybody feel great, learn. I just can't say enough good things about her. I mean, she's just, if there were certain molds that you wanted to pour goodness into and you got a fantastic teacher out of that mold, Marie would be one of those molds that I would want to have in my library of models to go after. She was just excellent and has made her aura is going to be missed at the high school. Doesn't matter who we could bring in Superwoman to replace her, and you're still going to miss Marie. I hope she knows that her retiring from here that she is leaving with a lot of full hearts and feelings towards her and the extra sugar that she gave to everybody in her life that came in contact with her. And I'm going to miss her a lot. And I wish her the best of success in her retirement.
Thank you.
I had one thing for 4.9. Are we approving also the ninth grade seminar? I know we passed it at site council. I don't know if we're waiting for more updates on it or anything.
That will go on. We had questions about in terms of the staffing piece to make sure that we could afford the program. And so that will go on next month's board meeting for approval.
Any more comments from the board? Okay, I'll move to approve the consent action items 4.1 through 4.9. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Meadow. Is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, I think we can call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, and I'll turn it back over to Malinali.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move on to item 5.1, which is the Windsor Education Foundation update. And this item is going to be presented by Diana Post and Yenzi Jacobo.
Hi, everyone. My name's Diana Post. I'm currently the president of the Windsor Educational Foundation because there's not very many of us, so we have to rotate it around. I'm also the proud parent of a student who has gone through Maddie Washburn, Windsor Creek, Brooks Elementary, Windsor Middle School, and is now in 9th grade at Windsor High School. So very supportive of our public schools here in Windsor. Before we get into the mentoring program, the We Mentor Heroes, just wanted to give you a little update on what the Windsor Educational Foundation has been up to. Last year, we awarded 31 students scholarships in the class of 2023. We just raised, and thank you, Paul, for mentioning it, and thank you, all of you. Thank you, Brian, for your donations and for attending our scholarship breakfast. We were able to raise $32,000 this year last Friday, so really great, and we'll be handing our scholarships out for the class of 24 in another month or so. We also distributed a year ago about $13,000 in Project Hero funds. This is helping everyone receive opportunities. And we raised funds and distributed, but I don't have the numbers this fall to the schools as well. We raised over $1,000 for teacher classrooms at the Support Our Schools fundraiser we did during the Windsor Day Parade and Festival in September. And we also support Windsor Arts Now. So that's a little bit about what your local WE Foundation has been up to. And now I want to talk a little bit about the mentoring program, We Mentor Heroes. So if we could click. So mentoring is a program, is an action that is showing young people that there's someone who cares about them and they're not alone in their day-to-day challenges. And this is a program that we started a few years ago together with Mentor Me from Petaluma, which is Yancy will be speaking to that, and in partnership with Jeremy and the Windsor Unified School District, and in an effort to help improve equity and access and diversity and inclusion in the Windsor Unified School District. So if we can go to the next slide. So this is a program where we train, we get mentors from Windsor High School, North Bay Met, from the high schools in Windsor Unified, and we train them, Mentor Me trains them, and then they are paired with a mentee at Brooks Elementary. So these are some scenes from the peer mentor training. Then if we can go to the next slide. WE Foundation has been selecting the students, and this year we opened up the application and really solicited students from across Windsor High School and North Bay Met. We had, I think, about 20 students apply this year. It is a volunteer program. We switched that over the years. That's been a change that we made this year. And I will say Rich mentioned, the inspiration from our students. We actually had videos. The students did little videos that we viewed. It was so inspiring to me to view these videos that it was the exact same feeling. It was a counter to what we see in the news. It was like everything's going to be okay because we have great students in our school district. So we were able to select most of them to serve as mentors, and they come from across the cores, across the grades at Windsor High School and North Bay Met. They meet for an hour a week during the school year at Brooks in the mentor center that we have. And look, we have a picture of one of them up here. And they read with their mentee. They practice different socio-emotional learning strategies and provide a safe space to connect. Next slide. Am I turning it over to you here?
Yeah, you can show it.
Thanks. So this is Yancy. Yay, Yancy. She's with Mentor Me in Petaluma.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Yancy Jacobo. I'm with Petaluma People Services Center. We run the Mentor Me program and have come out to Windsor to do the peer mentor training and also provide the oversight for the peer mentor program as well. Today, we have two of our peer mentors who are going to share a little bit about their experience with you.
I got this.
Yeah.
Good evening. Well, let me fix that. Good evening, board members and everyone else who was able to make it out here tonight. I hope you're all doing well. I'm here to give you a little bit of background and a bit of a story into my mentoring. I am a senior at Windsor High School. My name is Jack Pollard. I mentor for a fourth grader over at Brooks Elementary named Evan. He is a wonderful child. He is incredibly smart, way smarter than I was back in the fourth grade, if I'm being completely honest. He is really into automotives, which is something that I can kind of appreciate because I have recently got my license. And so Me and him talk about that a lot. We talk about our favorite types of cars and everything. But that's besides the point. The program, I feel, it teaches not only the mentees, but also the mentors. Because I'm the youngest of 3 siblings, so I've never really had a little brother or anything like that. And so when I applied for the program and they told me everything about Evan, I was a little nervous when I was walking through that door the first time because I had no idea what to expect. But me and Evan really just hit it off. And now, after what it's been maybe almost 6 months of us meeting with each other, it feels like he almost is my little brother in some form. And it's just been an amazing opportunity for me to learn and grow as a person, but also teach Evan that it's okay to make mistakes. It's that this is a safe space for him, away from home, away from school, that it is just me and him learning, reading together, playing games together, and that I will always be there for him throughout this program. And it's been just an amazing opportunity with me and him being together. I asked him the other day what he wants to be when he grows up, and he said a pilot, just like my mentor. And because I shared with him the other day that I wanted to be a pilot, and that was his response. Well, thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Woodcock. I'm a senior at Windsor High School, and I'm also a mentor. I've mentored a kid named Cashton. He's a 3rd grader. And I also I don't just mentor too. I mentor on Mondays, and on Thursdays I'll come in and help around the place. I'll usually watch over all the kids. There's many wonderful kids. I'm really bad names, so I can't name them all. It was a kid named Anthony, Eva, and there's more. Sorry, I'm really bad at names. And I originally became a mentor for my senior project, we do at Windsor High School. And I chose this because I always wanted to work with kids. I want to be a child psychiatrist, and I thought it'd be a good starting point to learn how to work with them. And I also know how hard school can be for the kids. So I thought it would be nice to help them, and if they need just a friend, and that's why I did it. It was definitely the right choice for me, as it really showed me how creative and smart kids can be, and also showed me how they're not very different from me and my friends when I was a kid, and how we just want to have fun, and they don't mean any real harm. And another thing they showed me was how sorry, I can't talk. How imaginative, like a big imagination they have, and like the worlds and games they can create, and they've shown me are honestly amazing, and something I don't think I could ever do when I was a kid. And it's quite impressive. It's better than some games I play, and I play a lot. All right, I was able to get pretty close to my mentee, Eric Cashin, who showed me many things I mentioned before. He was a very smart kid, but his main issue was he couldn't read, which was actually pretty similar to me. He couldn't really pronounce words, and he was read pretty slow, which yet again, pretty much just like me, still now. And over the course of us, we worked a mentorship. I worked with him a lot with that, and he's gotten much, much better. He might be better than me at this point. And it's just been amazing to watch his improvement. And I hope this program can continue, so maybe others can have their perspective change like I did, and start to respect kids even more, because I know that can be an issue with some people, especially some of my friends. And even more so, kids can have access to tutoring or just having a friend, and let them get through the journey of school. And thank you for listening. That's all.
Go to the next slide.
Thank you to our peer mentors for sharing. So just very quickly, one thing that we focus on in the training is developmental relationships, which are based off of research done by the Search Institute that reflects positive relationships with others. And then the model that we use is they meet with their mentee for 1 hour. The first 5 to 10 minutes are about a check-in and a grounding exercise, and then they go into 20 minutes of reading. And so they meet their mentee where they're at. So I know Andrew was sharing that his mentee needed more practice reading. So sometimes they'll take turns reading a page or they'll read aloud together. And then they go into 20 minutes of free time. And then they close out with an affirmation and a confirmation. So an affirmation is something that they noticed their mentee did really well. And then they close out by saying, okay, I'll see you next week, or next week is spring break. And so I'll see you the week after that. And so really holding that container and that consistency. So we are currently in year 3. The first 2 years, we trained 10 mentors each time. And then this third year, we trained 20 mentors. And again, the 3 broad goals of the program are to ensure that our young people are experiencing connection, are building their social emotional learning strategies, and also improving their reading skills. And then the 6 components are the 6 pieces that are part of each mentoring session. Brooks Elementary School staff will identify and nominate the students for the program, and then we'll reach out to the families to introduce the program, share kind of what the commitment is, what happens after school, and then we match students in one-to-one mentorships. This year, we actually had one mentee who requested to meet his mentee twice a week, so they're meeting 2 times a week. So I'm going to pass it off to Annette, the principal.
So I'm just here to say it works, and we're excited that we were able to expand. We're still, working on, making sure that we have all the slots full, but because we're so focused on the data, I just want to share that we did an analysis on the mentees that are currently participating in the program. We looked at the number of office referrals. Those are disciplinary referrals that come from a teacher after the teacher has already done some preventative in-house correction. So by the time it gets to the office, it's a more significant concern. We had a 73% of the students improve and reduce or completely eliminate office referrals after they started seeing mentors at the end of October, beginning of November. So it does make a difference. I've appreciated the support from the WE Foundation, from the district coffers. Now I'm going to reach out to my colleagues at the high school and say, let's take this up a notch. Let's work on this together. It's both beneficial to the mentors' growth and development, as well as the younger student. So I just appreciate WE Foundation bringing this to me and giving us the opportunity. We have this very cool location on campus with couches and games that they have fully stocked for us. And we appreciate the partnership and hope it lasts a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have one more slide here. Do we? Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so just want to say thank you for all the support that we've gotten from all of you on the board, and Jeremy, thank you very much for your support. We're preparing for year 4. I've had some discussions with Annette. We'll have discussions with Austin about that. And figuring out where we go after that. And I know we've got some discussions about that. So it's a super exciting program. It's taken us, we're really, I know we're year 3 of the program, but we started talking about this in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. So it's just super, super exciting. And thank you all very much. Any questions?
Jack?
Yes.
The 30 years ago, I was on the General Plan Advisory Committee, kind of got Windsor all incorporated and all that stuff, and got all our whatever. And there was a really nice man named Jack Pollard that did a lot of things behind the scenes very quietly. And are you related? Is that your grandfather?
How long ago did he say?
Well, he was older than me, and now I'm kind of older than him. So he'd probably be in his 90s now. So
Jack Pollard? I don't think so. I have an Elmer Pollard, but besides that.
Well, you have a good name.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he set a nice plate for you to continue on some great service to the community, and you're already starting. And so I thought you might be related, and he was kind of tall and handsome as well. So I thought for sure it was a shoe-in. But anyhow, he did a lot of nice things. And if you go back and look at the history of Windsor, you'll see your name, that he did some things. And I hope that you'll continue on in the service of others that you're doing right now and continue to continue that great name in our town for other people. So you have a lot to live up to.
I'll try.
Thank you for doing your work with the kids.
Of course. Thank you.
Actually, all of y'all.
Are there other comments from the board?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you for being here. I think I was in that meeting, a Zoom meeting, where we were kind of talking about what are we going to do after this pandemic ends, and how are we going to support our students when they come back into the classroom. And that's really like where this came up. And it was actually, I think, at that time, a very recent graduate of Windsor High School who kind of initiated this. She was in that meeting too. And so great to see that it's continued on. And I just wish we could have students present every item. I just want, can we make that a goal? Thank you for being here and sticking around until 8 o'clock to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Are there any public comments on this item? Nope, seeing none. Okay. So we'll move on to item 5.2, which is consideration of approval of new job descriptions presented by Pete Sullivan.
Thank you. Hello again. So tonight I am bringing the board 2 new job descriptions, seeking approval for 2 new job descriptions. We have both a certificated and a classified job description. So the certificated job description we're seeking approval for tonight is a CTE position. This is an early childhood education career and technical ed teacher. It was referenced in 4.9 earlier this evening by Mr. Williams. This teacher will be working to enrich student learning through teaching and coordination of internships at preschools, and working on curriculum development and preparing students for future positions, jobs, hopefully within our district. Actually, we're just kind of milling our own folks. And then this is a grant-funded position, and it will expand our current CTE offerings at the high school. And then the classified position is an early childhood education budget analyst. We're compensating for an expansion within our early childhood education programs, and we're hoping to diversify, with the diverse funding sources, we need a more comprehensive financial management analysis and accountability. And this position will support further program development and optimize resource allocation. So it's just the growth of that program and the comprehensive preschool program has been phenomenal, and it's taxing on all of the departments. And so putting a budget analyst in that position will help concentrate the services at that level. It'll keep Jessica closer to the money, and then she can help relay that information to Jeremy and Austin.
And just to clarify, that comes directly out of Jessica's budget, not general fund.
Thank you. Questions on the positions? And I might lean on both Brian and Austin if you have detailed questions on these items.
Any comments?
Thank you.
No comment?
Well, I mean, I'm good.
Okay.
Sometimes Pete does Pete does such a good job that just the mic drops. Boom.
There you go. All right, any comments from the public?
Do we have to vote on this, or is it resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the changing or the modification of this.
New job
Oh, it's what we already did.
No.
Oh, I'm going to hold off. Go ahead. No.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's any public comment before we vote. No, just making sure. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rich. Take it away.
Yeah, make a motion that we approve the new job descriptions, the CTE teacher and early childhood education budget analyst.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you. Okay, so next up we have, let's see, I hope I'm not missing anything here, but it's 5.4 consideration.
3.
Oh, yeah, I am missing something. Oh, I see what it is. Yes, I was actually excited about this item. It's consideration of discussion of the mid-year LCAP mid-cycle report and site scorecards. And this is presented by Brian Williams and also Patricia Chadwick.
And Annette. And Lydia. So thank you. We're starting an hour earlier than last month, so I know we're all fresh and ready to hear about status and change. Pete, can you be the assistant clicker? So the scores that you're going to see that I'll be presenting are last year's scores. And, we talked about, can you fill out your own taxes by hand and calculate it? Well, this is kind of looking at last year's scores is like doing your taxes. You see how you did last year, and there's not a lot you can do about the scores you received last year. So the exciting part is after I'm done, the principals are going to come up and talk about what's happening right now. But we've structured it the same way to talk about the status and change. And so if you think about in terms of the status, that's how well the students are doing. Are they far below basic, below basic? Are they on track? Are they proficient? Are they advanced? That's their status. And the change is whether they've made positive progress or negative progress over time. So in the slides that you're going to be seeing, they're going to be comparing the same group of students, how they did from the previous year to the next year, and whether they've moved up in status or they've moved down or up in change. So right now you can see that this would be, as a district, our English language arts. And so fortunately, as a district, we don't have any groups in the red. So that would be the very lowest status. We have some groups in the orange. So Brooks Elementary, you can see, has declined. So that would be anywhere from 3 to 15 points. Windsor, as a district, maintained. Windsor High School has a low status, but increased anywhere between 3 and 15 points. Windsor High has a medium status, but declined between 3 and 15 points. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. So ideally, as we make progress, we would have no groups in the red, and then we would have most of our students in the green. And so when you think about students like our English learners or our socioeconomically disadvantaged students or our special education students, oftentimes they might score in the orange and the yellow. And what we really want to see is that they're increasing their progress over time. And then we do want to see, the majority of our students in that green box. So that medium range increasing or in that high range. Click. So this is mathematics. Still no groups in the red as a district. And you can kind of see that Windsor High School declined significantly. And just to remind everyone that only 11th graders test for math and English at the high school level. So oftentimes it's really difficult to predict how the changes that we're making with freshmen will play out over time, when they start taking as juniors. So we're hoping with the changes that we made over the last couple of years that as we move forward, we'll see an improvement in our high school math scores. Any questions about how the district status and change before we move into the school sites?
I do. I'm going to be vulnerable and admit that I'm not sure that I understand how things are moving on this chart or how we're supposed to see it. And I want to make sure that I understand it. So hopefully, if anyone else had that question in mind, I will be the one to voice it.
No problem. And this was, as I said last month, we got to get in the weeds.
Yeah.
So Windsor High School, as their overall scored low, not only did they score low, and I was a principal last year, so I'll own this. Not only did they score low, they also declined significantly, which means they declined by more than 15 points. Whereas Windsor Middle School also scored low, but they increased year over year by anywhere between 3 and 15 points.
Okay, so that's why they're in yellow, and it has to do with the amount of points that they're increasing or decreasing by. So red would be how much would you have to decrease to be in red?
So for red, you would have to score very low and decrease.
Okay.
And so you'll see as we get into some of our subgroups at our schools will be in the red.
And then what is blue?
Aspirational.
So how do you get in there? Like, how could a school be in there?
You'll see that Windsor High School will have a status in blue for our graduation rate.
Okay.
And so that's because we're above 95% on our graduation rate, which is very high.
Yeah. And does it mean that you're improving too, or you can just have a really high rate and be in there?
If you have a very high rate and just maintain, as you can see kind of the blue, I'm pointing behind you guys. As you can see kind of if you're all the way on the top, if you just maintain, you'll stay in the blue. If you decline, you'd go into the green, even if you had a very high status. Or if you were in the high and you had increased significantly, then you could go over to the blue.
Okay. I just realized that how the chart works. Thank you. That it's like going this way and going up. Okay, got it.
No problem.
Got it.
All right, click.
I had a question
Yes.
actually, going back to that slide. I was just curious if you saw any patterns based on grade level. Like, for example, was there a pattern that was different for the lower grades, like freshman and sophomore versus the upper grades?
So you'll see when we present our scores next month for the high school, you'll see their RINSTAR scores. So you'll see it broken down by grade level. Because only the 11th graders take the state test, we only have 11th grade data.
I see. Okay, yeah, I guess this is sort of leading to a question that I've had floating around in my mind, which is how much did the pandemic affect the entering class of, freshmen that had, before their freshman year, had been on school online their whole 8th grade year? So I'm wondering like how much that has affected their, reading and math proficiency.
And that very well could be why that 11th grade class, so if you think about when they were 8th graders and when they were freshmen, that was during the pandemic. It was also after we made some of the changes in terms of moving it from a 2-year math requirement to a 3-year math requirement. So, and then also setting up that pre-Math 1 class. So a lot of those interventions that we've made over the last couple of years did not benefit those students. And so that's why we're hoping in future years, you'll see an increase in Windsor High math scores.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Click. So we have Brooks Elementary. So you'll see that the English learner for English language arts. So this is not their reclassification rate. This is how the English learners performed on their English language arts state test. So they scored very low and declined significantly, whereas our students with disabilities scored very low, but then increased in their scores. So as you can see, both groups can score very low, but one can move into the orange. And so the goal for next year, Porter Brooks, is to move the English learners and the Hispanic students out of the red status, and at a minimum, get them over to the orange status of increased, and then move to low and then medium, and then get everyone into the green is always the goals. So you can see all of the students were in the low status, along with the white students, and then our socioeconomically disadvantaged students scored low but increased. And we'll go over to math. So in this case, the English language learners maintained their scores, but are still scoring very low, which keeps them in red. And then fantastic work with our students with disabilities. Yes, they're still scoring very low, but increased significantly. So that means by 15 points or more. And then we see an increase in math with our socioeconomically disadvantaged and our Hispanic students. Next slide, please. For Windsor Middle School, you obviously can see that English learner success. And for this district, we've really focused on reclassification over the last number of years as our measure for success for English learners. But this is really identifying that there needs to be, in addition to not only focusing on reclassification, but also performance in math and English language arts. With our English learners scoring low, again, students with disabilities scoring low, but maintaining but seeing a lot of progress in terms of all of our students increasing, socioeconomically disadvantaged students increasing, Hispanic students increasing, and then we white and 2 or more races scored in the high category and increased. And then you can see for mathematics, 2 or more races increased significantly, scoring in the medium range. And then we have quite a few subgroups in the red. And then moving on to Cali, you can see that quite a few students are scoring in the red. And then in this case, you can see that while the white students are scoring high, they did decline significantly. And I know that the admin team over there has been digging into the data to kind of figure out how we can ensure that that improves. And then switch over to math. And you can see that quite a few of the groups maintained with seeing increases with students with disabilities and the white students. And then go to the next school, please. And then Windsor High School, English Language Arts, we're seeing some decline, particularly with our students with disabilities. And then are also seeing a decline overall with all students and socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and then maintaining with our Hispanic students. And then mathematics, as you can see, all students decline significantly, white students, and then quite a few students in the red. So before I hand it over to the principals, do you have any questions about these last year's scores?
I don't have a question, but I feel very, very sad to see this, lack of progress. And I don't really think it's your fault, Brian. I kind of blame it in part on the pandemic. And then also blame it in part on, for example, the socioeconomically disadvantaged group, maybe needing more resources than what they've had, especially if we were in a pandemic. So I sort of look at that, but I think listening to all this information just made me really, really sad.
I'm not sure if I'm right on this, so that's why I'm going to just talk it out loud and you can help me out. Because I just put something together, I think. So Windsor, because our special services for students seems to be much, much better than other school districts in the county. We have a higher percentage of students. I think we're 20% of our students.
Don't think we're that high.
No, I mean,
We're not 20 anymore. At one point, we were at 19. We're actually down, I think, around 15. And I think Deborah just told, she's not here tonight, but I think she said we're about 15.
so about 15 now, but I think that around the county is below 10, I think, right?
Really, if you look at the state, that's really where we're looking at the average. In the state, we're about 4% higher than the state average.
Okay, so it's not as much.
It used to be 8% higher. So we're around 4 now.
Got it. Okay, so we're still a little bit higher than state average, but for whatever reason, it never clicked in my mind that if we have a higher percentage of students that have extra help or need extra help, some of their academic stuff, it makes sense that those test scores may not be quite, they wouldn't be what the state average is because they're actually a little bit lower because the students need extra help. And so it was just something, it's just a little bit of a mindset change. So to help my expectations of again, if you're capable of X, I want our kids to hit that X mark. If they're capable only of Y, I want to still hit that Y. It's just that sometimes we might be looking across the board and say, why are we not hitting X? When if for some groups hitting Y is the X. So anyhow, I'm just kind of thinking out loud that we have, and I didn't realize that our numbers had come, I know that they fluctuate, with the cohorts as they come in and go out. So I don't know why there's this echo, but with that, I'll stop.
So if you just keep in mind, our goal is no students in the red, most students in the green. And so even though in bottom left-hand corner, you see those students with disabilities or those socioeconomically disadvantaged students, if they just get 3 points of growth next year, they will be all the way over into the orange. And so that's what we've been charging the principals to do, is to look at every single subgroup and have a specific strategy for every subgroup that's in the red. And where all you need is 3 points of growth. And that means basically you're getting down to the individual students, you know their names, you know what classes they're in, and you're putting strategies in for those specific students. So we very well next year when we're giving this presentation could have no subgroups in the red, and that is absolutely our goal. And then over time, we want to move most of our subgroups into the green. All right.
Wait, just a second.
Yes.
Yeah, I too am very distressed by this data, and judging by the results of the RENSTAR testing, we're going to be looking at pretty much the same thing next year. I mean, you can tell me otherwise, but you'll see when we look at the RENSTAR data. I don't see that this is going to change very much between now and next year. Tell me if I'm wrong or tell me something different.
Let's talk through it during the presentation. I think it's probably better. That way we can talk about the specific RENSTAR data.
Okay. Fine.
Is there other comments? Kai, do you want to say something?
I realized I've done a lot of, or I've looked into into the like effectiveness of a lot of our test scores and everything, and I know there's a bunch of stuff, but it does seem interesting to me, and I'm obviously a kid, so I don't know a lot. Well, I know some stuff, but I think the difference between our white and Hispanic students being such a large gap, it was interesting to me. I'm very surprised with when we have such integration between everybody's in our class. It's not as if they're separate. It's not as if we're taking different tests in different classrooms, right? And even at Cali, where we're all together, and just have Spanish, English, immersion, everything. It's just. And obviously it's not socioeconomic as we have those separated as well. It's interesting to me, and it feels distressing because even if these tests aren't effective, everybody should be just the same amount of ineffective, right? I don't know. I think it's interesting to me. I don't know if there's any data or any reasons that we have already about this.
I'm sure. You identify what we call an achievement gap, and that's happened basically since we've had schools. One of the images that one of the presenters, Dr. Cruz, he does our professional learning community training that he uses. They talked about the pandemic. And if you think of the pandemic as like really rough seas, everyone, as you said, are in those really rough seas. But I'll tell you what, my children during the pandemic were in an ocean liner because I got them tutors. I bought them their own Chromebook. We upgraded the internet in our house. My wife, the PE teacher, was giving them private PE instruction. We did all of the things. So they were in an ocean liner and some were in a little dinghy and a little rowboat. You know, those are families who were really impacted. So while we all were in the same rough seas during that time, we weren't all in the same situation. And what you're going to see, particularly with our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, you can give the same education, but if you consider all of the other factors, you may not get private tutoring. I hired a Spanish tutor just to work with my children. Like, as I said, they were on an ocean liner. I knew how to do it and I had the resources to do it. And so really what we need to do is to ensure, when we talk about rigor, the bar never changes for anybody. We want to get every student to that level, but the amount of support that we give students to be able to get to that bar, that's what we need to do. And that's what I think you're going to hear from the principals in a moment.
I also wanted to speak to and add on to what you're saying, Brian, because I also saw patterns emerge during the pandemic. So for example, the Latino community was hit so much harder than everybody else in terms of rate of deaths during the pandemic and rate of people getting infected, mainly because, as you're mentioning, a lot of Latino families, even if they weren't at this socioeconomically disadvantaged level, even I think the regular families were having a lot of trouble just accessing resources. They may not have had appropriate healthcare or access to the vaccine, but Latino families were more impacted than anybody else in the county during the pandemic. Another trend that I see also as a college professor is that a lot of my Latino students are working like 2 and 3 jobs to help out their parents financially. And I think a lot of them, what they have seen over time, especially with the pandemic, is, their dreams have been somewhat reduced in terms of what they hope for the future, because now they're in this situation where they have to financially help
their families versus, try to excel in school and, build a career. So I think that, it's a different mentality when you get put into that position, right? And if you see your parents are all, for example, during the pandemic getting sick, or there's deaths in your family, that's going to have an impact on the family. So I think that Latinos suffer more than I think any other group in the county, and that's just a reality. So I think we need to do more for our students. So I always defer back to your saying, Brian, which is that we're going to drag every student over the finish line. Like, we just need to do that because that's what equity is about. It's meeting the student where they are with all of the challenges that they have and really seeing them, for where they are.
And I think another part that I didn't point out that we should understand is you can be Hispanic, an English learner with a disability, and socioeconomically disadvantaged all at the same time. And so if you're providing extra services for that one student, you're improving 4 different subgroups. And so if our goal is to move subgroups, really targeting students that have, that we're fall into multiple different categories, can really help us ensure that we're making that progress.
Right. And also, I just want to add really quickly that it's not just, limited to our county of Sonoma, but across the United States. There's a scholar, his last name is Velez Ibanez, and he's come up with the theory that's called the distribution of sadness. And what he says is that Latinos suffer more than any other group in the United States because of systemic racism and also historical segregation. So it's important to, again, look at our students. Where are they? What are the challenges that they face? How do we remove those challenges?
Definitely. All right. So the main goal of this report is to basically say here are our scores, and then these are our major expenditures. And so what we're really considering, and we're working a lot now, is the decisions that we made over the last 3 years with the LCAP is we basically committed all of our money up front, because most of these are salaries or items like transportation. And so we have very little ability to make mid-course corrections because we've committed all of our funds into these kind of big ticket items. And so as Jeremy has talked about, that we're transitioning into that site-based funding model, is to say is no longer are we just saying you get one teacher to be your reading teacher. We're saying that you get $120,000 to make those decisions. So if you decide that, hiring 4 aides is a better decision, then the site and the teachers and the site council can help make those decisions. And so we want to be able to be a lot more nimble with our decisions and be able to make course corrections throughout the year. And that's why it's also important that we're having these multiple windows where we're checking the status of our students to make sure we're seeing that positive change. With that, I will invite up Patricia for the Maddie Washburn presentation.
Brian, before Patricia starts though, can you please explain the percentages? Because you and I discussed this about what the 29%, 30% means, because it's actually staying on track versus improving.
Absolutely. So you'll see that window 1 was the very first initial test that they took this year. And so students coming in kindergarten all the way through 2nd grade, looking at their early literacy scores, they scored, so 27% of those students in that first window, which what did we say was October? Was in October. And so that is normed against other students who take that same test in October. With the 29% in window 2, the test, the ability to score on the test actually gets more difficult. So even if you're not seeing a huge change from window 1 to window 2, what you're seeing is that you're making that adequate year's growth. So if we had 95% of the students, then we carry that from window 1, window 2, window 3, window 4, we would still be in very high status, and not seeing a huge change from window to window wouldn't be that big of an issue. The issue is we're not at 95, we're at 27. And so Windsor doesn't need to make 1 year's growth every year. Windsor needs to make 2 years growth every year. And so that's really the strategies that we're looking to be able to do. Does that make sense? Like I said, we're getting in the weeds here. Okay, so, all right, so come on up.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So I'm actually going to pick up right where Brian left off. First, thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. And hopefully clarify some of these pieces and specifically how they impact our youngest learners at Maddie, and the moves that are happening instructionally, in classrooms across grade levels, to address these things, as well as just site-wide with campus climate and culture. So to that point, as far, let's look at that first line item, Ren Start Early Literacy, for example. The interesting thing as a teacher, putting that hat back on for a moment, that used to administer Ren Start Early Literacy back in the day, it was interesting to me to see where the rise and fall would also be during the school year. So you have your beginning of year window, as Brian talked about here, your trimester 1 window, you're looking at that October data, and now looking at window 3, and that those benchmarks are fluid in RenStar. So for example, if we go down to one kiddo, let's go to one kiddo's data for just a second. That would mean even if they fall in the range of at or above grade level in window 1, they have to maintain a specific growth rate to stay at or above grade level. They don't just coast and stay there magically throughout the school year. And that means, right, we're doing best instructional practices. We're doing so many things to try and reach every student, because even a student who's showing at or above or exceeding grade level expectations and goals doesn't necessarily always stay there, okay? So there's so much fluidity in the data, but that is, to me, very exciting because it shows where the moves that we've been making have impact. And if there is not the amount of impact that we hope for, then we look at why, okay? So all that being said, if we look at literacy now kind of in the broad scope, again, in order to maintain and be in that orange, that means that we have students within all of those grade levels that are showing at least the 50% student growth percentile goal, I guess you could say. So what that means is they're keeping up with what we hope is their expected growth throughout the school year. But if we can ramp up that growth rate and accelerate it with improved practices in teaching, with targeted intervention, with some other things that I'm going to touch on here in a moment, and other moves that we can start to look at this school year and next, then we really have the potential to see the larger growth. I think, for example, Paul, that you were commenting to, where we're not seeing minimal growth, but over time, longer term, more accelerated growth. So it's less about the stagnant percentages and more about what's the growth rate and how do we accelerate that for our kiddos. So maybe just bear that in mind as I kind of talk through the other pieces here. So for literacy, some of the things that I think have at least kept us in that maintaining, which, like I said, does take hard work to maintain. But again, we're working to accelerate student growth now. And that has been really focusing on phonics and phonemic awareness. The different ways that we have done that are through building teacher capacity, so training, professional development, that has now spanned across school sites, partnering with Mega so that teachers are getting necessary training to be able to then implement those strategies and practices with their students at tier 1 level, which means in their classrooms with kiddos, not just leaning on external intervention or pull-out intervention, but the kids are getting double doses of intervention. They're getting intervention in their classroom, and potentially, if they're identified as needing more support, then additional pull-out intervention, okay? So
Literacy has a hyper focus right now in phonics and phonemic awareness through Heggerty. We actually conducted a data cycle with our leadership team, our P3CC or pre-K through third grade district team that's now been working together for 3 years, or almost 3 years. We identified a data cycle that actually fell in window 3. Okay, so if you're looking at window 3, we just barely missed the end of that window, but still there were classrooms TK through second grade at Maddie fully implementing Heggerty phonemic awareness instruction, 10 to 15 minute mini lessons every day. Hyper focused on phonemic awareness because that's what the data is telling us our students need. Okay, as well as building teacher capacity so that they feel like, yes, they have the tools in their toolkit to be able to teach in this way. Regardless of whether they're new or veteran teachers, there's always that little bit of, well, phonemic awareness is maybe different territory I don't know so well. So we're going to continue building their capacity for the rest of this school year and looking to next school year, deepening those practices. If we look to math, you'll see the color changing, but again, in order to maintain, we still have to continue seeing student growth rates, at least holding strong, if not accelerating over time. One thing we have noticed through data work in our leadership team this school year is that overall, though, there is a very clear connection with reading skills and how that impacts math performance. As we all know, Common Core math is very heavy on reading now, as well as even some speaking and listening. Students have to defend their thinking or be able to speak about what strategy resonates for them to help them solve a math problem. So there's so much embedded in math that has to still do with language arts, really, reading, speaking, and listening. So one of the things that we've already identified is our essential standards that we would like to work on just to close out this school year and look to then what are the most essential standards looking to next school year as well. In terms of wanting to finish strong, you can't finish strong if you don't know where you're headed. So common goals through essential standards is what we have really spent a lot of time on. For example, teachers through our release day for our leadership team sat and actually identified just for the end of this school year 2 to 3 essential standards for language arts and for math, okay? That each grade level team will hold to and be accountable to each other for in how they're teaching those standards, what resources they're going to pull from, and then look at the data, not just summative at the end of year window 4, but pulse checks throughout the final trimester to see are students getting it? Are they not? What are we doing to address what their needs are in real time? So that kind of wraps up there the academic piece. But I will say the highlights will be the PLC work that's been started and that will continue, as well as tying PLC work now together with the P3CC literacy team that our district has been just kind of pulling together over the last 3 years, and now focusing on P3CC math in the years to come. So that's something that you'll start hearing a lot more about because clearly our data shows that literacy matters, but so does math. So looking to now all staff connected and thriving. We don't have employee engagement survey data yet, so that's to come. But I did want to just highlight that there has definitely been a shift as far as what staff has reported in culture, overall school culture and climate, which the little pinpoint that we were looking at was my school creates a positive work environment. There's been various things that have been put into place to try and create that, from what our staff meetings are comprised of, looking at ways that we celebrate each other and celebrate staff kudos to recognize just positive impacts that different staff members are making on our campus, and that doesn't just have to come from me, but I'm glad to model it and take the lead in that way. And then staff really have taken it and started to run with it and have even started providing ideas on, hey, what if we try this? Hey, could we look at doing this? Just to continue growing in this area. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what more can be done here, but I want to celebrate the fact that there was growth. So lastly, our strong family, community, and school relationships. Something to highlight here is that, yes, it's maintaining. It's not hitting that 4.0 mark. However, I want to say that Parent Square has actually been a huge piece of parents feeling like they are receiving communication from teachers, and not just one-way communication, but two-way communication. There's a messaging aspect in Parent Square that doesn't just feel like an email. It's almost more like texting. It's more real time. There's a lot of parent response rates that have gone up over time throughout the grade levels, as well as I have some bright spots in across grade levels where teachers are just using Parent Square immensely to keep parents informed. The tweak that we would like to now make is making sure that it's not just blasts of communication, or these are the things happening in the classroom, these are the fun things coming, here's how you can volunteer, but actual regular and cyclical feedback about student progress. So it's taking it up a notch now to say, yay, teachers, thank you so much for using this communication platform, this tool, making it your own, communicating with parents. Now let's layer in what's the feedback loop on parents knowing where their students are, and in between parent-teacher conferences, for example. Creating spaces for that type of communication to happen as well. Lastly, I want to just highlight, going back to academics for just a moment, that both first and second grade teams, through conversation that started at PLC Work and one of our release days, have decided to launch right now after spring break, regrouping across their grade level. So they are going to be looking at data pulled from RenStar, from BPST, which is a phonics and fluency assessment, and grade level data that just kind of fits what units of study they are pulling from. And all of that data has now been pulled together to create groups that are based on actual students' needs. The targeted skills that they have now pulled from are going to be divided up. Those students will be visiting different classrooms for reading, for all of reading, but specifically phonics, reading fluency, and some comprehension, because again, we have students that are ready for extension or deepening and beyond just decoding and fluency, and they get that too. So all of that launches when we get back from spring break. And again, 2 grade levels are bought in, and it's all rooted in data. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that's being done. And now it's just a matter of let's get to window 4 and see what the gains are. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Yes. So I had some questions. I was just kind of curious about like how everything came to be the way it was. So how did you identify, you talked about like phonics, and maybe you said something else, and I don't know if I forgot the word, were identified as the things that teachers needed, maybe some additional training.
Yeah.
How did you decide that that was the thing? Like how did that decision come about?
And how that process came to be. So twofold. One, student data. So looking at our RenStar scores and looking at continually, there was this gap in phonics and phonemic awareness. As Brian likes to say, the phonemics. But that was just an area that was identified very early on as something that students needed. The next level was teachers having conversations, data conversations. And one of the wonderings that came up across grade levels was what happens when that's not built in. The direct instruction isn't built into the curriculum we currently have. If that's a gap, how do we fill it? And what tool, what resource might we need to help us get there? Because we can't all just pull from, the sky. Yeah. So that conversation then, especially having cross-site collaboration time with Gali, it came to, hey, Maddie's not the only school feeling this way. We have our counterparts at Cali that are feeling the same way. What do we need to help this phonics and phonemic awareness gap get filled? Surveying staff, talking about what's already out there, what exists in English and Spanish, for example, things like that we then, and with the help of P3CC, which is our kind of big initiative for literacy, we landed on Hegarty as being the training method as well as the resource that we would use to help us move our students forward. And it's been very popular with teachers already and easily implemented.
And what does the training look like? Sorry for asking so many questions. I'm just curious about the whole kind of like inception to finish. And I'm wondering, like, what does that training look like for teachers? Was it professional development days, or is it just something they get access to? Can you speak to that?
Right. So it fell during the time frame when there was not a professional development day on the calendar. So we actually cross-site used a Wednesday staff meeting day for PD or for a professional development session. We actually attended together. It was a live virtual webinar, but it actually was, again, Callie and Maddie teachers attending together, asking questions together. And then also, since then, the common thread continues to be, okay, what other resources can Hegarty provide us? So they have a wealth of trainings, little videos of real teachers in real classrooms with real students that are actually demoing specific lessons or specific skills. And teachers, this library is there in their database, and you can log in and watch them at any time. And teachers are finding that that's actually super helpful in building their confidence and then being able to replicate it with their students.
And then I guess last question would be, are there any goals as far as training that teachers have kind of setting themselves? You talked about professional learning centers, and I'm not sure how often they meet, but is that part of that?
It is a huge part of it, yes. So currently our PLC time is not weekly yet. Okay, so it's bi-weekly at the moment at Maddie. However, we do have eyes on next year, especially getting it to be a weekly built in time for all grade level teams. Then at this point in the school year, though, we do rely pretty heavily on our data meetings as well. So even though data meeting is an admin directed meeting, I can carve out that time for grade level teams to have data conversations that are very PLC-esque. And even though it's a data meeting that I'm putting together with leadership team, for example, it's all incredibly connected to our work. Yeah.
And one more question, which is, how are you planning to make sure that at the beginning of next school year, so you've kind of had this process go on this year, but there will be some people who leave, some people who join. Are you planning to make sure that everyone is going to be on the same page like day one of class when the students come in?
That's a great question, and one that we've already been thinking a lot about. So one thing is, this year, though it was kind of phrased as a pilot year, the buy-in has been huge and very exciting, but it's an expectation for next school year that since all teachers have their kits, we are doing this. This is our phonemic awareness resource, and this is what we are using. Therefore, continuing training, for example, for new teachers, and making sure that they have the same onboarding opportunity or kind of general training opportunity, as well as Hegarty offers follow-up PD follow or check-ins. They have their own team that can check in both with admin and teachers and continue to be a resource that our teachers can reach out to. That's not just limited to a pilot. It's actually there every year, no matter what. Thanks.
I want to point out, because I don't think Patricia will, but I'll point it out. So last year and before, we couldn't even get the teachers to agree that the tests were even valid and that they should even look at the data. And pretty much all of them resigned their positions for leadership and most of the teams. Not only has Patricia got them working in PLC, she has a vibrant leadership team that meets regularly and asks to meet more. And she did all of that while raising her positive work environment scores. So absolutely fantastic work. And I know that doesn't show up in our scores right now, but you will definitely see that progress with the teams that she's building.
Thank you, everybody.
If I may add on real quick to what Ryan just said. In the recent time I have spent more on your campus, the kids get so excited to talk about you. I know it's not like positive staff community, but you do a really good job at enriching the community on your campus, especially with the students. So props to you there.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I am going to ask not a question for you, but it's going to be for all y'all. And it's more of something I want you to think about. Often we get asked, hey, if we could just have a little more of this, we could do all these things. Be in our closed session, we had the guest person came in and said, hey, and if you could just take this and this and a little more of this and there, and this would be marvelous. I'm kind of liking this idea of now our sites are going to have a little bit of this, and now you all get to decide where you get to put it. With that responsibility, that opportunity, I just want to know if you guys are prepared for the how did it go conversation. What did you learn? If you could do it over again, would you do something different? You know, every time we play Monopoly and every time we go around the board, sometimes we would buy that property and sometimes we bought that property, and next time we're going to buy that property because it seems like everybody always lands on that one, so I'm going to own it to get rent, right? So we learn things. I love this concept of letting you all kind of have a little freedom inside a fence area of seeing what you think is going to do best. You're close to the kids. Some years it might be this, some years it might be that. But again, I know that Bill's not here, but oftentimes he's going to say, what should we expect? If we invest $10,000 here, are we going to be 1% better in our scores or learning 5%, 15%? What is it? Sometimes you don't have a measuring improvement in scores, but you'll have a huge measure and improvement in culture that then helps everywhere else, right? So sometimes it doesn't necessarily show up, but so anyhow, I guess the point is, have you guys on each individual sites started dreaming about what you're going to do with this nice, but still small but limited amount of extra that you get to allocate to where you think is best? It's not, and I'm not looking for an answer, but I just want you to know that that's kind of what we're thinking, that y'all are going to, you get to now start to get to answer down the road of how's it going. Because truthfully, for all of it, for me, I don't want to throw you guys under the bus. For me, I don't care how it gets done, just as long as it gets done. I don't care about means and methods. I don't care who gets credit, who gets whatever. I just want our little sunbeams, coming out, shining bright. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this experiment goes. I also kind of looking forward to seeing how you guys figure out how to stretch that dollar out to be so big.
And Rich, just to talk about that a little bit, this year heading into next year is the first year that we actually started this. So we identified what is kind of core service and what's supplemental in nature. And so we met with each principal and really talked this through and what different options were. And sometimes it's difficult because you have to get agreement from a staff member to say, hey, we'd like you to do this, but are you ready to? So some of the changes that we even identified did not get implemented next year because we still got to do some work to convince people. But I will tell you that these guys were very creative. There's some sharing that's happening between Maddie and Brooks. We had plans to cut a counselor, but through honestly the creative genius of these guys, we were able to save one. So next year's the first year that this is occurring. And if you look at this data, it's not where we want it to be, right? We don't want 70% of our kids not meeting. But that window one was in October. So that's not the beginning of learning. The beginning of learning happened in August, mid-August, right? So if you backtrack that and really think about what the baseline probably was before some of this learning took place and look at early literacy, it was probably 25%. So it's 5% increase, that's some kids are doing better than 1 year's growth. That's good. It's not where we want to be. We want to be up at 48%, but I think you got to celebrate math. If you look at that increase, that's significant. I mean, we're looking for 3 points, right? Math was at 12 and it back down to 44. Some kids fell off track as we're going, but that's still 9% when we're hoping for 3 to move the colors.
But do we I don't know if any of us know. So I heard it a few times where it says, hey, look, if you were at this level today, okay, well, we're expecting if you're staying static, this 2 months from now is actually here.
Correct.
Do we know what that expectation of growth is that just keeps us at 0? What is it, like 2%, 3%? I don't even know if that's the right way to quantify it.
They give you an arbitrary number like 50. I don't know what that 50 means. But what we are able to do is look at the rate of growth by student, by teacher, by school. And so we are able to identify which teachers are making the most progress. And in some cases, we were surprised, because you've got, very, well-involved teachers that. Okay, I will stop talking.
And I'll just respond briefly that we are super willing and we are ready to start or continue thinking out of the box and dream big, because while we can't do everything, we can do a lot of things and get creative, like you were saying, Rich.
Cool. Thank you. I wanted to say something about do you guys use grade level equivalency? Because what happens is
that's one of the measures we
come
look at.
into, let's say, grade 2, they have to be at 2.0. But by this time, this part of the year, they probably have to be 2.5 or 2. Right. So that's kind of where you were talking about the bar going.
Yes.
That's one of the measures that they use.
Exactly, which is why the growth rate is such a big deal.
Equivalency.
And why growth rate is such a big deal. It's the partner to making sure or ensuring that trend continues. Yeah.
Yeah, he threw me off because he didn't use an acronym. I only understand acronyms in schools now.
It's GE. If you're looking at the
That's
well,
true.
I know
If you
what
look at
that
the
is.
report, yeah. All right.
Right,
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. No, I was just going to say we have more to this
Yes,
presentation.
thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, I will not steal any more thunder, and I will bring up Annette, who will bring the thunder and tell you about the fabulous things that are happening at Brooks Elementary.
Oh, it's like 9 minutes to my bedtime. There's no thunder gonna happen. All right, you can see some red. You can see some blue, you can see some green. We set our goals in the fall when we got our SBAC scores. And at this point, we're kind of hovering and staying, making average growth or a year's growth in a year's time, which isn't enough for the students that we're serving right now. We know that. My teachers are very committed to looking at the data and trying new things. So I just want to share that since October, when we put strategies in place, there's a few things to highlight. So when I took the RenStar scores and I disaggregated them by classroom and teacher, it became evident that we had some classrooms that were achieving high growth. We had some consistent with the SBAC or CAS scores. We had some special education classrooms that were also achieving high growth, meaning these are students that can learn, are learning, and while they're still performing at a lower level than their typical peers, they're showing amazing growth. So the hope there for us is that when I did kind of rip off the Band-Aid for my staff last month and showed them kind of some bright spots, some teachers that were getting some significant growth out of their groups, following that challenging experience of either seeing your name or not seeing your name in the high growth area, I had staff come to me asking, hey, can I get in that teacher's classroom and go see what they're doing? And that, for us, is huge. So that's where we are. At this point, we're highlighting where we know that there are positive, amazing things happening. We also have spent time in the last 3 months, my third grade team, for whom teaching reading at a third grade level is different than teaching emergent literacy for students who don't have phonemic awareness or phonics. So they needed supplemental materials. They went out and did some observations at another school. They participated in the Heggerty overview. They had some conversations, made a decision, and we're adopting a phonics, phonemic awareness and fluency program for our third grade so that we are prepared for students that enter Brooks not ready who still need support in reading. In addition, I have my special education teachers sitting in on PLCs supporting teachers with the strategies that they are using in their rooms that are working for students with disabilities. We can't help but look at what is happening in some classrooms that is showing growth. Our SDC classrooms have 2 adults. They have 14 kids, so you got a 1-to-7 ratio, but then you also have every child in the room with an identified disability, right? So it does matter having more bodies in the room. I'd like to say Brooks has a partnership with the Senior AmeriCorps program. Thank you, Jeremy, for sending them my way. We have 2 committed volunteers currently and a third one coming in. We have Grandma Debbie, we have a Nana Fran, and we're going to have a grandpa pretty soon. And these are adults that are in the room. And we know as teachers, adult proximity impacts behavior. So you got 2 in a room with 24 kiddos, that's a 1-to-12 ratio. And more likely that you're going to make good choices because there's an adult holding you accountable. So there are things happening for us. One of the strategies we are doing to address our Hispanic and English learner population is that we are getting all of our teachers trained or retrained, because all teachers receive instruction in English language development, but that was a long time ago for some of us, and it's good for us to have refreshers. So I'm partnering with SCO. I'm working with our ELD teacher on special assignment, and all of our teachers are going to begin designated English language development in their classrooms this fall. And they'll receive the support and the training to do this, but the aim is to shrink that gap a little. We're also going to participate we're jumping in on the P3CC math bandwagon. So we're having representatives hang out with that cool group of smart humans. But I have to say that receiving our scores, our hearts are hurting too. When I flash the scores on the screen, my team loves and cares very much their students, and so it's hard. The work right now is hard, but I'm optimistic because they're fully engaged. Are you hot too, Meadow? I'm so hot right now. All right, let's move on to the other measures that we measured. One was a youth truth where we asked students, do you feel like an important part of your school? We saw some growth there and we're happy and proud about that, but we're aiming higher on next year's. We had a goal for our staff to become more and to feel empowered and part of the decision-making process. That is holding steady. Right now, it's already high, that's why it's green, but I'm shooting for a 4 next year, not a 3.94, just so you know, Brian. And the way that I'm facilitating that is staff are making decisions in their PLCs weekly about curriculum, about master schedules, about what their kids need. So I anticipate that to go higher. And with regards to our family score, we did see some good growth. We're still working hard on that area. And I just sent to Brian my tracking sheet on all of the strategies we're doing. And I review that with my leadership team on a monthly basis. Where are we? What needs to get done next? Because I'm never one to leave anything untied. We will do every strategy to its full implementation so that we can then check our work. Did it work? And then we go back and change course if we need to, or we keep going if it's working.
And this was a confusing one when I first saw it, because I said, okay, how's our goal 43? But we're starting at 44, and we had to have that conversation. But your goals were built upon your SBAC scores, correct?
Yep.
And the SBAC scores for ELA last year that she was working from were 32.61%.
Oh, you remembered my.
No, I have it pulled up. I'm not that cool. So, but I just want to point it out because it was confusing to me when I looked. So that's significant growth. Obviously, you're reading. Now, math, we were at 24.89. So there hasn't been growth beyond what's expected. And that's where, some significant work's got to take place. But I think the reading one is to be celebrated, and that's why it's blue. So we're on track to hit that goal. We've already exceeded it.
Yeah. I can't help but look at it and say I really need more than 43% of my kids at or above grade level. So I won't be done till we're there. All right.
Yeah.
What questions do you have?
You want to go first?
Well, one was, what is the PCC?
P3CC is
What is
preschool to third grade. What does CC stand for? Coherence collaboration. So there's teams forming. The literacy team formed with teachers from Cali, TK through second and third. Did you have a third grade teacher? Okay. And Maddie did the same. My team wasn't ready to dive in 3 years ago. And so we're jumping into the math one, but we meet once a month and a couple times a year there's an offsite like Sacramento at the end of this month, meeting with teams from other districts and receiving guidance on all things math. So the hope for us is that our team will benefit in that we will figure out what are the most effective methods, because we aren't finding
facts.
Well, we are doing that, Paul. That is definitely a major push at our school right now. But like Patricia said, there's a reading component on these tests that if the students can't read it, it's difficult. Unless it's simple math problem solving that's visible, and you can see some groups that are excelling at that. We saw English learners excel at that and make some growth. But it is challenging the amount of reading that's involved in mathematics right now. So
P3CC, just so you know, because you asked that question, that came a few years ago. So the former superintendent of West County, friend, reached out, said, would you want to be a part of this? So we jumped in, and it's basically a bunch of wealthy donors have contributed money to this group. This group then finds districts, we were one that fit their model, brings us together, and then we do a lot of good professional development. It's really high quality. So it's up and down the state of California. So a lot of these teams are meeting with other teams from Southern California, Central Valley, whatnot.
And who's meeting?
Teams of teachers and administrators.
Mm-hmm.
We can't solve this problem in our classrooms by ourselves. We have to be at the table with each other. And so the more we do that, and my team is feeling that, the more we do that, the more we expand our blinders, let's say. You know, it can be an isolating profession, as you know.
I can send you guys more information on this.
Okay, no, that's fine. The other thing, though, I wanted to put a pitch for.
Okay.
As Rich was saying to Patricia, you know, you have this pile of money, whatever size pile this is. I will pitch for you to get an adult in the classrooms, an aide or whoever, but I will caution you with volunteers. They're very unreliable. My experience with having volunteers and counting on them to be in my classroom didn't always work out so well. So I'm just pitching to you to get that ratio down in your classrooms. However, you can maybe start at third grade or
we have third grade actually does have 45-minute of aid support right now. And I agree with you that more bodies in the room. I do have a different experience with volunteers, having been an AmeriCorps manager for 8 years. I have had success with volunteers. So more bodies in the class.
But either way,
does
right?
Work.
Either
I
way.
agree.
Yeah,
it does
absolutely.
work. Yeah. Yeah. Well prepared, well trained, high expectations can work. What's up? I see you smiling.
Yes. So I do want to take a moment to recognize that you did have growth in reading from last year. So, I mean, that's a 10% jump. That's good. But I want to like delve right into math and hear from you why you think that there's a gap in kind of between the reading scores and the math scores.
That gap exists across the state. That's not the doing right now. It's the doing of the curriculum we're using, the pandemic, slowing kids down. I think about my current third, fourth, and fifth graders. They were in, respectively, kindergarten, first and second, the fall that we came back for distance learning.
Yeah.
So they were in
I guess my question is a little bit.
They didn't get the instruction.
Right.
And now they're in third grade, and the curriculum we have is not the curriculum they need at their level, at least a chunk, right? A group of students. Some are ready because like Brian said, some people kept floating comfortably in the storm and some people did not. And so we have a wider gap happening that we are trying to equip ourselves with. And when you say I'm getting a little pocket of money, I also had to cut. I also had to make a big cut and get creative about which piece I was going to cut because that lands ultimately on my teachers. So I looked at my supplementary list and had to think, is it the intervention teacher? Are they going to take on the intervention? Is it the English language development teacher? Are they going to take on ELD? Is it my counselor? Are they going to take on the social emotional? And I engaged them in the conversation. They had 2 routes they wanted to go. We're going to take the first route, which is bringing ELD, designated ELD in the classroom next year. And then after that, looking at how to sustain our garden program outside of a certificated teacher position. But we want a sustainable garden program, so.
I think you need to ask him for more money.
He does a really good job helping me strategize with the money we have. I don't feel like he hides anything.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I think my question was a little bit different. Maybe I didn't articulate it. So like what I thought was interesting is that Maddie, you had higher math scores and lower reading. At Brooks, you had higher reading and lower math. So I was just wondering, what do you think attributes to kind of the flip at your specific grade levels?
I don't know. That's something to dig into. I think that is a good wondering. I don't have an answer though of why that would be.
Okay. And then I'm almost done. I was wondering, since math is kind of the area where, like, obviously you want to grow everything, but have you identified like a specific thing that you want training in for your teachers that you're going to work on together? Like, is there anything that's kind of, there's a consensus that like Paul would say math facts. I think, you know.
Right, math facts.
Math
Well,
facts.
I
But
want
is there
you to-
anything like that?
Yeah, and I think that conversation is happening now because as you can see, we saw an uptick of 5% at the window 2. And we've just received these ones. So the conversations are now happening in PLCs about why. And I do have teachers saying we need a different curriculum. This one's not working. So my third grade teachers are definitely engaged in participating in the 3-year P3CC to go out, get new ideas and bring them back to our site. But I'm also talking to them about reviewing other curriculum options.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When you say curriculum options, are you talking about both math and reading or just math?
Well, all of it. Right now, we hope to wrap up the science adoption in the next couple months. We really can only do one at a time. There's only so much time in the day that we can pull teachers after school or out for the day to review things and consider curriculum because you want to be able to look broadly and meet the needs of the kids in front of us. So my order right now is get science done, then look at math, wait for the framework, the standards and framework to come out before we adopt reading because you don't want to adopt reading right before they redo everything,
Right.
which is what they do every 7 years or so.
Okay, and then Rich, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm actually taking Bill's time that he would
Okay.
normally use if he's here.
Yeah.
I have no idea if this is true, but in my experience, in the first and second grade, all the boys seemed to do the math, got better math and not as good as English than the girls. And then, because we were memorizing math or whatever, and boys seemed to be doing a little bit better. And then as we got into the second, third, and fourth grade, then the girls were smoking right by us because they were able to read those. You guys changed the rules and made these math problems into words and reading problems. And then we were struggling with those more. And then it kind of balanced out more in the fifth, sixth grade. And I have no idea if that might be what we're experiencing with the reading and the math going back and forth. I have no idea. I just know that I was doing really good math and then I was doing terrible math. And is when everything changed over to word problems and stuff for a while. And then it took me a while to kind of get back because I felt like those word problems were always trying to trick us.
They are.
I know, and they were doing a good job too. So anyhow, I don't know if that might be to your question, Stephanie, of why they kind of flipped. Maybe I have no idea. So it was just something, I don't know if you guys, when you look at your test, I don't know if it's broken down. If you look at boys, how boys are doing versus the girls and not versus, but in comparison.
I haven't disaggregated by gender.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like that. I'm just curious because that was just my experience. Because I remember I used to get better grades than two of my friends, and then they were killing me. So
there is some research that says teachers have higher expectations of boys. Things have shifted significantly, and we're seeing girls achieve, just like you said.
Oh, they were smoking us. They were achieving well. Anyhow, thank you. That's it. I know we have a lot more to go, and so I don't want to.
Yeah, we'll let Lydia speak.
Thanks for letting Bill jump in.
All right, with that, you get a double feature from Lydia tonight, who will be doing both Kelly Elementary and Kelly Middle School.
Hello, good evening. Buenas noches. And I know everybody's tired, so I had a lot of things to share, but I think I'm going to kind of shorten it.
Lydia, this is the most important thing that we'll do tonight. So please don't shorten it. Take the time.
I agree.
It is.
So I just want to start saying that tonight for me, it's a reflection really of the year. Being principal, my first year as a principal on a site that I was an AP for quite a long time. So regardless of these data points, when I look at the balance in there, I do see successes all over. I am very proud of the work that my team has done. There is more beyond these numbers that is very difficult to kind of bring in here on a daily basis what everybody does on a campus. There are other type of data that we also have to consider that we don't see in here that is happening on a daily basis too inside of the classes. Observational data that we don't have in here. I am proud and I do see a lot of growth in different areas. As you see here, the blue in early literacy, kinder and first, the growth is big right there. In Spanish, if you see in that window 3, we went down a little bit, still maintaining. In English, maintaining, steady. And then in the 2 grade levels, the big ones, TK all the way to 5th, and then 6, 8, the math area, it's a big one. And the need for different strategies and different practices inside of the classes that need to change and move. And we need to have those hard conversations, which we have started to have those this year with the teachers all across different schools. Talking about those practices is not just the money. It's not the fact of having a big amount of money and let's see what we do with that. It's looking into being vulnerable and understand that we need to be changing some practices, some things that we used to do. We have different students now. They have been, they went through a lot of trauma, and we have to acknowledge that and change the way we approach the students inside of the class. For us in Cali this year, the culture and climate has been huge to be changing those practices inside of the class. Giving the power or the leadership or creating leaders of leaders inside of the campus has been a big one too, to move that needle. And especially with this PLC work, which I'm very proud of the leadership cohort team that has been the whole year planting that seed with the learning that we all have gotten from the PLC training that we all go in there. I've always, and in my heart, I'm a teacher and I'm an instructional leader. And it has been hard to not be kind of part of the work with them. They told me from the very beginning, let us do this work. For them to say that, for coming from the teachers in a school, that's big. They are taking the ownership and the responsibility to spread that leadership, which that is the empowerment. And those are the changes that we're gonna start seeing on coming up years. So I'm really, this work with PLCs, that's the answer, really. And it takes time. It's not just 1 year, 2 years. As a teacher, I've been part of PLTs for 10 years. And the growth that you see is tremendous. It's that collaboration with the teachers. It's the focus on what the kids are, what the kids are able to show with the learning presented to them. It's production. In the case of languages too, what can we do with the language? How can we, show me what you know, really. I'm tired, sorry.
That's okay. I was wondering on this slide, the English reporting is where it says reading state report. Is that what the English is? Because I just see the Spanish.
In the reading state, that's English. Yeah.
Yeah,
ELA.
so the reading state report, right?
Yeah, that's ELA. Yeah.
Okay.
And the focus also, so with the PLCs and then the PLTs in math and in English, in Spanish, that's gonna be making a difference too. Like this year too, the empowerment with the teachers, they looked at the different instructional schedules for next year. And we put in there for next year an Eagle time that we call it, which is a instruction for extension or intervention within the day. And the teachers had the power to put those in, so the kind of the accountability, when I told them, I really need you to have that in within the instructional minutes, all of them got into it, they did it, they put that instruction, that intervention or extension time every day for an hour, that it's PLC or PLT within the class too. So those are the practices that we are gonna be changing. Big focus for next year, it's gonna be that writing piece, the production, and the speaking part. At Cali, and I'm gonna be open and honest about it. After COVID, we got hit, the language area got hit pretty badly. And my goal, and it's not gonna be done in just 1 year next year, but it's bring it back, that target language in Spanish, where the kids can produce the language, an authentic one, in interactions, not just the memorization and saying it out there, but how much I can produce with it. So that has to be happening within the class on a daily basis, in the math class, in the science class, in the English class. So those are the two big goals. Also, my big goal I'm working with the LCAP too. I would love to bring an exchange program, international exchange program in the school with the middle school schoolers. That would be really cool, and that would be exactly the mission situation or that we need to have for the kids, for them to see the meaning on the work they do on a daily basis in a bilingual setting. Let me look at my notes. You want to change to middle too? So right there, for the Spanish teachers in 6th, 8th, there was window 2, 40%, it went down from 48. Window 3, they picked it up. There was training, AP College training for language this summer for the 3 teachers, and it is a steady, and they are bringing that up, again, with that performance assessment piece on how much they can do with the language, the students. English, they went up. We are in green right now, 44% from that 38, and baseline was even lower than that. So it went up. Spanish, I want to rocket there, 6th grade, Maestra Rosas. The growth is just amazing. We talked to Maestra Rosas, Williams, myself. We kind of sat down with him and asked him, like, what are you doing? Because that's a class that you would go in there and he owns it. You're not going to see anything around the walls, decorations. But what he does, and he mentioned, what I do with the kids, it's my relationship with them. That is what he thinks is changing the whole success in that class and the movement of the needle. The relationship, and like this past week, actually, the kids went to lunch, and I saw the maestro there with a big group of kids. They were all with the Chromebooks out after lunch. I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on here? And the kids told me, like, we didn't do the activities that he was asking us inside of the class. And I said, okay. So he was right there, and he said, nobody's gonna go until they take the responsibility of finishing up, showing it to me. So, and it was his lunch too. So he was putting that time there for the kids and guided them too. So, and then big concern that I do have, and I don't have answers yet for that, and the PLC work, it's going to be kind of digging into data and showing us more what path to go with this. But it's a big concern that I do have with 7th and 8th in the math classes, that all of a sudden, those are the only 2 grade levels that are taught in English. The whole life, these kids have been instructed in math, in Spanish, and they jump into English right now with a 23%. So I'm not happy with that at all. Those numbers are low. There is, in the bilingual setting, the big strategy of bridging inside of the class, where, and I'm not sure if you know about that one, but in the class, you do have 2 colors. One of the wall with colors, it's in English. The other one is in Spanish. And the same terms, and you change those according to the unit that you are going to be given. So the kids are looking at the same vocabulary words or terms in both languages. So that's something that I would like to investigate more and then bring it into the classes with the teachers as well, that I think it will help.
Why do you think there was such a big increase in English?
I don't have an answer.
I'll give some cover for these guys. So one of the things that we're still, this first year we're doing this, right? And our cadence is a little off. So we're trying to figure out the right cadence. In fact, Brian and I, our next step is to kind of debate the cadence that I've created, meaning when we discuss this at principals meetings, when it's submitted, when they have to present to Brian before it gets onto the board docs, all the things. So they just got window 3 about a week ago. And so that's, so it just to give them a little bit of cover, they just haven't had enough time to really dive in.
And the change from math Spanish to math English is so fascinating to me because I have a daughter who's 6th grade at Cali, and of course we speak English at home. And if she's going to just solve a math problem, like an everyday math problem, she has to do it in Spanish, even though her natural language is English. So it really, that flipping of it's just fascinating to me. But yeah, she has to do, even when she says her number, she does it in Spanish.
And a really big one that I would love, that I want to, and I actually met already with the AVID teacher on campus and with Miss Devon too at the high school. We are going to be having a PLT only for AVID. So we can bring those AVID strategies, not only middle school, but all the way down to elementary as well. But overall, I know we have a lot of growth to achieve, but there was a lot of damage too done in culture and climate. It has been a big one on my campus. I'm so grateful for the Dean of Students that we do have, Ms. Behrens. I'm grateful for the 4 interventionist behaviors aids that we got to, that changed completely the work we do on the campus. The expectations are higher, and we are going to maintain those expectations high because the kids are showing us that they cannot achieve those expectations with behavior, with everything. So they will be more ready to be in a class and be part of that instruction piece. But again, it's the practices that need to be changing. And they will, as we are working on this PLC and that communication collaboration with teachers, where they will see their data and they are able to kind of discover and learn from each other, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses. So learn from each other. That will be the piece to make instructional strategies different within the class. I think, yeah, I had a lot more, but we
did really want to hear what you had to say, because as Jeremy mentioned, we have been looking forward to this data for a long time.
One thing too that I want to say is Cali Calmeca got right now as a semi-finalist. We received an email from Sonoma State University first semester asking for innovation on campuses and how we could kind of show that. So talking with my team, talking with Ms. Behrens, our Dean of Students, I'm like, I know we have done a lot of things. I know we keep doing a lot of things. So knowing Ms. Behrens, she took it like, let me look at everything, and I'm gonna be writing a nice presentation in here. So she did, and we just got called. They are coming to observe campus after the break for being a campus that thinks outside the box, innovative in their practices with recycling, with writing for focus, for social emotional, for the students that we have done this year too, and it's working really well. You can see the kids all around with their bikes. And so it's exciting. So thank you, Ms. Behrens. She's not here, but I don't know. I just want to say I'm so proud of the whole work that the team is doing. It's hard work, and everybody is on top of everything, helping each other's out. And I'm so in hope that this will be changing with the years, and the results or the grades will be better.
I mean, I think part of it is just looking at everything and the way that you have a team on your campuses. Like, we see you as part of our team here, and we're part of your team. So it's really just that same process here where we're asking questions and trying to understand and just know what's happening and what your thought processes are. Really, is like, we just want to know how you're thinking about things. And so really appreciate all of the work you're doing. I mean, you have many grades that you are responsible for. That's a lot of different strategies and approaches. So thank you for that, and just for everything that you guys have shared tonight.
Yeah. And you are more than welcome to come to campus, really, when you want. We are there, and I would like you to be there whenever you want.
Yeah, actually, I would love to. I've not visited Cali for a while because my daughter is now a junior, but she went to Cali. She graduated from Cali. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from that school is that there's something that is embedded in the school culture that really celebrates reading. Because I know that during her time there, she really became a very strong reader. And she, really picked up a love of learning. And I think for example, in the first grade, she had a difficult time because by the first grade, if you're a Cali student, you're expected to be able to have literacy in both English and Spanish. And when I remember, that time and thinking that's crazy because she's only like 5 years old, right? She's supposed to be able to read equally well. And, but yet, like you said, they rise to the challenge and they do it. And I think since that, she has become a very strong reader. So I think that there's something that is embedded in the school culture that really promotes that. So she had both Ms. Zacconi and also Ms. Chadwick, for her teachers. I think that part of it, I remember that there was a lot of focus on, for example, book fairs and going to the library and knowing how to check out a book and all those things. I think even though they seem small, they really promote long-term love of literacy.
And just to finalize, our leadership with the students' leadership team this year has been really great, with many different activities, going into classes, reading for the kids, doing social emotional presentations for the little ones too, that inter-exchange of grade levels in languages. And then they are now working on a uniform, it's a, no tengo la palabra en inglés.
Dilo en español.
Cuando vas por el campo y con los uniformes, esto es lo que tenemos que hacer, un eslogan de todo.
Okay, so a slogan of everything?
Yeah, like going around and doing like a really presentation to the kids on campus. This is, if you wear the uniforms this way and these days, then you will have a dress day, a free dress day on Fridays. So,
Una
campaign. Campaign.
You're talking to politicians. That we knew what that
There
would
we
meant.
go. And they came up with, they sent me an email. They were like, Principal Teruel, this is what we want to do. And I'm like, go ahead. Yes, let's do it. They are filming, they are sharing announcements with the teachers and the students. So kudos to them as well.
Speaking of campaign, this is one of the things that I've got from all the stuff that's coming through here. A lot of different things. All earlier you said it. It's been mentioned with you guys. The proximity of adults and the stuff. And I had a thought that came in my mind that kind of brought it all together for me. And with your campaign idea, one time I got called in, there was a little Sunday school class and there was a whole bunch of boys. They were all about 9 and they were just like raising heck. And one lady came in and said, hey, could you come in and help us? And I identified the 2 troublemakers. I'm sorry, the 2 leaders. And I sat right between them just like this. And the rest of the class went great. It went so good that they ended up calling me to then be the teacher for the class. So you don't want to be too successful either in some of your endeavors. But to Paul's point, I have real life experience of being in a class and then you're able to control them because of you're just closer. So Jeremy, the reason why I'm bringing this up because I know I'll forget, but in your discussions with John from the town, we have declining enrollment. Why? Our town is getting a little older. We have not as few kids. Every house is still full. So we know we got a whole bunch of folks still living here. And I was thinking, okay, what's the campaign? We're looking for 50 over 50. There's got to be, or 60 over 60 in this town. And let's get them and actively go and say, hey, we need these people in our grades TK through 4th. That's what we're going to focus on. We get a whole bunch of adults that will actually commit a little bit of time, learn a little bit, because I'll be honest with you, I'm talking to Jeremy last week, I love the idea of a little headlock and a little headlock. And it worked great in Sunday school, but we can't do that, unfortunately, unless we have a whole bunch of wrestling classes in kindergarten through 4th grade, which I'm cool with too as well. But in all seriousness, I think we could get our town, and there's a whole bunch of people that would volunteer if they knew that we really needed that help to get the proximity of adults in with the kids. And I think I just wanted to bring it up. We can talk about it more later. I think our town has the resources right here and the people that have the willing time and the hearts to come in and help us. I think that you guys we're identifying some stuff that maybe we kind of do a little bit. I don't think we've campaigned and had a campaign of getting folks to come in and help. Anyhow, we can discuss that later. I know we're like way.
What's very interesting talking about data is family engagement, which we are working really hard on that, and to redo that again and bring them back is the Bingo Night that we did have. That was a tremendous success that I didn't know that was going to happen that way, even more than with cultural events that we have had. The Bingo Night. But it was fun. Everybody was in there. We had food. So that's it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Lydia, I did have a question.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I didn't know I had a question.
Oh.
I was just going to ask if we have public comment on this. Yes, thank you. Matt? Thank you.
Hello. You know, I love to come up in public comment when we're talking about literacy. Sorry, Brian. Callie Lister, and I'm a parent of Brooks student and a parent of a Callie kindergartner. And I am a teacher, a literacy teacher, and a consultant. And I just want to share a little bit of research with you. Rich, I know that you said that you don't care how it gets done, just get it done. And I appreciate that, but I've had to hear a lot of your stories tonight. So I'm going to share a little bit with you because I do think it's important that everybody on this board has a basic understanding of what it takes to make a reader, okay? So here's a first research fact for you. 40% of students will learn to read with relative ease. 60% need good instruction. And I want you to think about our RenStar data and where those numbers are. And we're talking about moving little tiny needles there, but we need big needles, and that's going to take some solid, actual solid instruction. What does that look like? Phonemic awareness is a good start, but I will show you a phonemic awareness activity. We'll use Rich's name. Rich. Blend. Rich. That's a phonemic awareness activity. A lot of kids do that pretty naturally before they even come to kindergarten. A few don't and need some solid instruction. But you'll notice there was no letters involved in that at all. That is not going to fix the reading problem. Learning to read and write in English is a very deep orthography. It takes kids from 3 to 4 years just to learn the phonics angle, unless they're that relative few who kind of seem to naturally do it. That's 3 to 4 years of really strong instruction that's required. It's not going to happen with 15 minutes of little voice activities. It's not going to get it done for the 60% of kids. I promise you that. Here's the other tricky part. In a Spanish-English immersion, you've got Spanish to learn as well. Now, Spanish is not as deep of an orthography. You can learn it in a year. But you also have to learn the English. And so we have a very big gap in some professional capacity in our district here. We have it around the county. So you're talking about a slogan, and I want you to consider this slogan. You know, tonight I heard you all be so proud of student leaders. We had some other students in here tonight, some high school students who had some real rough times. And I did not see the grins and the smiles and the tearing up for them. I didn't hear the thank yous for them. More of your students are in that situation than in this amazing situation. Okay? So I really need you to care about those students. Love them and hold them dear, because they're the ones that need our attention. So let me get to my slogan here. Windsor schools are the pride of our community. We talked about the blue up there being aspirational. I promise you, in Sonoma County, if we get to the green, we will become the pride of the community. Guess what that fixes? Low enrollment. It fixes it. People will want to come to Windsor schools because they'll know that their kid is going to learn to read and write and do math without having to pay private tutors. Not a lot of other schools are getting this done around Sonoma County, and I think that you guys are small enough that you could really drive it home. But on the LCAP committee, I am not seeing a lot of professional capacity goals. I'm not seeing those. And I'm on that committee and I walked all through those goals and I saw a lot of goals. Professional capacity in teaching how to read and write, not really in there. And those goals have to have some real oomph, and that might take some money. It's the bottom line. But I'll tell you, as a taxpayer, I would rather my money go there than the garden. I would rather my money go there than the arts. I know these are people's loves and passions, but my God, we have kids who are not learning how to read and do math. So I really urge you to actually learn a little bit about what it actually takes so that we can make sure that that's in the goals. That professional capacity is in the goals. Poor Annette has been putting up with me all year But they're starting to get some work done there at Brooks around developing some professional capacity, real deep work. That it is needed. It is needed for everybody. And there's going to be some legislation coming down from California. I really urge you to get on this faster than you're getting on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments? No, any other comments from the board? No, then we can move on. So next up is, let's see, item 5.5. I'm sorry, 5.4.
Brian, do they have to vote on your mid-cycle LCAP? No. Okay.
Yeah. So moving on to item 5.4, consideration of approval of changing resolution 2024-14, reduction in force by, is it Pete?
Yep.
Yeah.
Pete, will you give the positions and I'll give some rationale?
Very good.
I'll do the wellness center and if you just do the rationale for the other one.
Okay, you got it. So both 5.5, 5.4 and 5.5 are corrections to resolutions 2024-14 and 2024-16. And so last month I presented a comprehensive list of certificated positions scheduled for reduction, which totaled 16.768 FTE. And we're happy to change that today. We are actually going to bring 2 jobs back, and we're going to be now at 14.368. So resolution 2024-14 will reflect that change, which is the matter of the reduction of discontinuance of particular kinds of service, which will require a vote, but we're happy to announce why that's happening.
Well, let's talk about, wellness center. So last month, we kind of got the rug pulled out from under us with regard to the wellness center at the high school. There was funding that we expected to get that SCO really kind of said was a done deal. And then they changed the rules and we didn't end up getting that funding. And so we've been trying really hard to figure out an ongoing funding source for our wellness centers because we really value them and want to have them moving forward. And we just hadn't had one by last month. There's something on the horizon that may be an ongoing funding source, but it's really new. And I don't think the audit guide's even come out yet. So we're unsure how it's going to be interpreted. But when you look at what the thought is, it looks like a really good option. Okay, so I'll leave that there. We got a grant called the California Youth something mental health grant. I can't remember the exact acronym. It was supposed to be spent over 2 years, but they've actually stated that it may have to be spent over 1 year. It was for $400,000, and there's another $80,000 that came along that we've kind of plotted in with this grant. And so what we're proposing to do now is take all of those dollars, implement them next year instead of over 2 years, fund our wellness center as well as parts of a different position as well, but fund this wellness center. So it gives us time to understand if we can identify an ongoing funding source. It buys us time so we can have our wellness center find this money moving forward and then keep it for ongoing. Now, if we can't find an ongoing funding source, then we're right back here next year, and that's a problem. But I wanted to say this because we're really trying hard to fund this wellness center, but we can't do it without an ongoing revenue stream that's identified. So I need to say that out loud in case we're here next year having to make this cut. Our whole focus from here on out is to find this money.
But tonight we get to celebrate that we do get to keep both the coordinator and the counselor at the high school. So the wellness center will be up and running next year, and we're hoping to capture the energy that we have gained this year moving forward.
I was just wondering what's the counselor's specific credential for that position?
I believe she's a marriage and family therapist, and her experience is in the private sector, and then she also did some government work, but it's not in schools. So this is she's more of a clinical worker, and so she's adjusting to schools, but she's really finding her groove and enjoying it, doing all those tier 1 supports and then triaging and making sure those kids are capturing supports down the road if that's what they need. And like I said, we're we're really starting to gain energy there, and students are starting to see the wellness center as a place where they want to be and they can be to self-regulate or to get assistance. And it's nice that we're able to offer this again next year and hopefully find a continuous revenue source to move it forward. And that will require a vote, I believe.
A resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, I just, before we vote or go out for public comment, I wanted to acknowledge Kai because you wrote up, I think it was you who wrote up about having kind of gone and done some interviews of students across campuses and specifically asking them about kind of their use of wellness centers versus social emotional counselors. And I just thought it was really interesting and informative. I mean, it's one source, so we probably wouldn't want to make a decision based only on it. But like, it sounds like wellness centers are pretty helpful, and that maybe students are not utilizing social emotional counselors as much as we would think that they are. Is that a fair characterization? And if you want to add anything, you're welcome
Remember, I
to.
shared your thoughts, right? I shared the thoughts with the board. So please feel free to talk about it.
We know what you said. I know.
Yeah, I mean, it was good.
Well, thank you for that. I actually, I was talking to some people who were at the wellness center. They said already they've had almost 115 visits for their first month. They've been open that they're giving to like first tier support to people, like breathing activities. I was very surprised at the amount of people they're helping. Not like I didn't think it was going to be that effective, but I think the community has seen that it's working, the people at the high school, and it's just going to continue to increase as people really get comfortable with it and find the support they need. And I think that baseline help for everybody, bringing everybody up, and instead of trying to be a therapist, these like very severe cases, I think trying to bring all boats up is more effective and more our place.
Well stated.
Okay, is there any public comment? Nope. Okay, so we need is it a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I've got it.
Oh,
Do you?
okay.
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Student board members Kai and Meadow.
Yes.
And before we finish, we actually have gone past.
I'm going to make a motion that we extend the meeting to 10:15 so that way we can try and get the rest of this done.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll move on to, let's see, now we are at item 5.5. So this is also Pete?
Correct. So this is our second correction. This is 24-16, which is also a reduction in force. This is moving the other way, however, not because it wasn't planned, but because I missed it. So when I went through the seniority list to establish who's being laid off from that classified list, when I got to instructional aides, I missed that we actually had a program instructional aide who was hired in 2014. So I wasn't looking for program instructional aides because I thought they were all new positions. But no, in fact, we've had a program instructional assistant in our ranks since 2014. So she was part of a layoff. And so I have now moved that FTE back into the resolution. So we were at 10.751 FTE. We're now at 11.39. 11.439, excuse me. And this is in the matter of reduction and elimination of classified service, and will also require a roll call vote.
Okay, are there any comments or questions? No? Any public comments? Nope. Okay.
We need a motion.
So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay.
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Heather Graves.
Yes.
Kai Ossie.
Yes.
I just would like to make a comment on this item and the one right before. And I know we don't talk about public comment, but just I'm thinking, I want us to kind of maybe think about, I heard somebody say earlier that sometimes we might have to think about changing some of our programs around a little bit to maybe focus on some earlier grade stuff. Maybe a little more in the English, more in the math early on, which means we might have to temporarily suspend some of the things that we might offer and retask some of those things. And I think we might be ripe for that discussion, because that, not tonight, in the future, near future, because that might be a strategy we might want to implement for 2 or 3 or 4 years, which means we might be offering a little bit less. As an example, let's just say, pick a thing, lollipop making, whatever, right? If we only have 9 kids in that class and we've been keeping it, we may want to suspend the lollipop making for a few years and take those funds and focus them on those early year stuff. I know it's going to be hard discussion.
I understand what you're saying.
Because everybody had, I might love the lollipop, you might love the windmill, whatever, I don't know. But we all may have to do a little bit of shared shrinking of some of those things to focus, because like I made a comment earlier on, it doesn't matter if a kid the metronome means nothing to a kid who doesn't understand math. And it just has one example of different things.
I understand what you're saying.
Anyhow, so I think that we may have to have that discussion. So
Lollipop making is one of our CTE pathways, so we would also lose that funding.
Just keep in
as long as
mind,
we don't lose the funding, I'm just saying of what I want to call our discretionary funding or whatever. We may have to have that discussion, because again, reading, writing, arithmetic, that is what is our number one core, and everything else is added value.
keep in mind, Rich, it's March 14th, so anything that affects positions,
This is
it's
not
for
right
following
now.
years,
This is-
future years.
Yeah, so
Okay.
well, I believe that we have to have the discussion and workshops and stuff and studies. This is something that we would do over the next year.
Understood.
To prepare for, does our community, it's not just our school, this is K through whole, because that means that it affects everybody.
Yeah, I got you.
And then to have that, we had a discussion earlier, or a comment earlier tonight about community involvement and all that other kind of stuff. This would be something that we would really have to get, not buy-in, but participation on the discussion of it, everybody, to see what it is we would need to do and go from there. So anyhow, it would be in my mind, this is a 4 to 7 month type process of going through it all, very well thought out. It's very strategic in that avenue. So.
Okay, so I think now we are at item 5.6. That's Austin.
Mhm.
And this is notice of public hearing for implementing developer fees.
All right, so on January 24th of this year, the SAB State Allocation Board approved an increase to developer fees. So the amount of fees that we could collect from local developments. Basically, the state approved that you can collect $5.17 per square foot for residential, and then 84 cents per commercial. Did I say commercial twice, or did I say residential the first time? Okay. But that government code states that before we can impose that increase, we actually have to go through a local justification study to make sure that we are indeed that amount, that increase is justified through what we're charging versus the modernization of our current facilities to house those increase of students.
So Windsor, we hired King Consulting to come in and do our justification study. Sure enough, we are justified. We're well more than justified to charge those fees. So there is a resolution if the board approves to increase developer fees to the new SAB allocation limits of $5.17 for residential and 84 cents for commercial. Following this resolution, if it's approved tonight, this is official hearing, but if this resolution is approved tonight, we do have to wait 60 days after this resolution before it takes effect. And then this is an item that has to be approved before April 1st of every year, according to government code. So, are there any questions?
I did have one also. I called you earlier and we were going to, just so everybody's aware, there were some things that we talked about last year. I can't believe how fast this went by. We're going to follow up later on the question about the 500-foot exemption for small ADU type units or whatever. Doesn't have to be addressed tonight, but I want to have that discussion later about, because 500 feet is exempt, right? So if someone does 600 feet, then they have to pay the whole 600. Why isn't 500 of it? So anyhow, I want to have a discussion about it. The one thing I did have, and I forgot to bring up, the thing about the mini storage.
Yeah.
I don't know why is a mini storage 4 cents? Because mini storages are 100% associated with residential, because people are in an apartment and they got to store their stuff somewhere else because they don't have a garage, or vice versa. Let's put it this way: most businesses aren't in mini storages.
Right.
Most mini storages are full of everybody's crap that they just can't emotionally let go of, and they're making a fortune hanging on to it, right? And so anyhow, so I'm more like, it kind of made me think, oh wow, is this the friend of the baker or whatever, whoever the folks that were just got there? But there you go. I knew somebody would know who it was. And no, Stephanie, not all of my examples are food oriented, but is this the 0.04? Is that a state thing, or is that just?
That's actually that's part of the local justification. We did not meet the limit for mini storage. So we have to take the local justification, right?
You were kidding me.
Correct.
I must have missed that in the report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better though,
It doesn't.
Well, no, this will though. I had Jillian go back and check if we've ever had a payment for mini storage, and we have not. So I don't think it will affect us a whole lot moving forward. Even if we had a 10,000 square foot mini storage that would pay us, what was that, $40, $400?
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, 0.04,
yeah,
that's not even worth the stamp to send them an invoice.
Right.
But at 86 cents a foot, I'd hand deliver it.
Yes.
So anyhow, that was I just didn't understand why that was so low.
Yeah, I didn't dive into it too much because I didn't feel like it would have affected us.
Okay.
I think we realized the mini storage lobby is stronger than we thought.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I read this. I'm like going, man, there's a lobby for mini storage, and I didn't even know it. So.
All right. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Public comment? Nope.
I make a motion that we approve these.
And I'll second. And this is a roll call vote, right?
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Meadow Graves.
Yes.
Kayasi.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, it's a roll call vote. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so that passes. So now up next again
Sorry,
is Austin.
Malinali.
Yeah.
It's now just gone 10 o'clock, so you need to
It's
make.
till 10:15.
Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
I knew I was going to take Bill's moment, so that's why I said 10:15.
He was planning ahead.
All right, so up again is Austin with our second interim financial report.
Thank you, Brian. So every year at second interim, I do this report in March, and usually I'm giving you an update of the governor's budget in January, and I'm still going to do that. The problem is we just had another Senate budget that got approved today by Mike McGuire, who's from Healdsburg. The problem is the governor's budget in January was so unrealistic, it's hard to go based off of. So I'm going to give a guideline of kind of the history of what's going on right now at the state for projections. So in December, the Legislative Analyst Office, which is another branch of the governor, estimated that there would be a deficit of $68 billion. In January, the governor said, no, it's only $38 billion, right? So that $68 billion number went public. We saw it everywhere, all over the news, that $68 billion is a deficit. And the governor got really upset, per the LAO's president's words, that it's only $38 billion. Well, then in February, following the income of January tax receipts to the state, the LAO then doubled down and said, no, we think it's still $62 billion. So regardless of what's going on, you have so many different disagreements. And so I could sit up here and tell all of you, we have an extra $50 million, when in reality, if we don't, the budget's going to look completely different. And so that's what's happening at a state level. And we still use all the projections that they give us, but that's kind of the history of what's going on. And so if you go to the next slide, Brian, the reason that's important is because as we look at possible reductions, the LAO then said, the next question out of all your mouths is going to be, if we're correct, and if everyone else beside the governor is correct, what are they going to look at cutting? What are the things that we're going to use to make this budget balanced? And in that Senate proposal that came out at the start of this meeting that I was reading at the very beginning of this meeting, they accepted a lot of these proposals. So rejecting proposed ongoing spending, such as the cost of living adjustment, green bus school grants, that, they recommended that. They recommended reduction of grants that we've already been told we've been given, but not fully received the money yet. Reduction of ongoing programs, expanded learning opportunities program, preschool is on the list, school meals, universal school meals was on the list, and TK staffing requirements to reduce that was on the list. And then there was also a proposal for rainy day withdrawal. So basically they have a fund balance, the state does, just like we do, right? And when things go bad, they have a reserve to be able to dip into. Deferrals, basically they tell you, we're going to give you $4 million in January, and then they go, well, instead of doing that, we're going to give it to you in February. And so the most recent deferral was about 3 years ago. It was a June deferral. So they said, we'll give you roughly $3 million in June. Instead, they gave it to us in July. At the start of my career, deferrals were actually much worse. It was 3 or 4 months that they would go, not just a month. With that being said, the Senate budget that was just kind of approved from this education committee that Mike McGuire oversees included basically all of those except for a reduction to the COLA. The COLA is already at 0.76%. The COLA is the cost of living adjustment. So with that being said, Brian, if you go to the next slide, I kind of wanted to look, because the big thing out of this budget, there wasn't a whole lot in there because there's not a whole lot of money, right? So whenever there's not money, there's no discussion about what's being given to us because there's nothing being given. So as you look at the cost of living adjustment, this is a very long historical aspect of where cost of living adjustments have been in the past. So if you look at the last 2 years, a 6.56 and an 8.22, and we know that 6.56, there was an augmentation that we could go round and round about what that was for. The state budget said that was for high inflation costs that a school district is going to have to face. But you can tell that there's anomalies in that, right? There's really high times and then there's really low times. But we can agree on the fact, no matter how you're looking at it, that those super high COLAs we experienced the last 2 years were anomalies, just like a 0.76 that we're going to be experiencing this next year, roughly, is an anomaly. So anyway, I just thought that was a good perspective slide to kind of put everything into the realm. So the main takeaways from our first interim, things that have been updated that affect our budget. are really assumptions. That's the cost of living adjustment now being at 0.76 instead of 3.94. So roughly 4 down to below 1. And for every 1% of a cost of living adjustment, that's roughly $350,000 to our budget. So, that reduction ongoing has a large impact. The enrollment projections have increased. So we did get confirmation from Chief Mejia. Is it Chief Mejia or Chairperson Mejia? That, we have some students moving in. So that's exciting. And so those have been accounted for in this budget, but we only accounted for about 70 students. We didn't have the final confirmation before this was built. And we're actually going to receive about 40 more than what was built. So that's good news to this budget. And then attendance percentage is slightly lower. If you guys remember, Jeremy and I went back and forth on attendance percentage, and I ended up being right. So that's yeah, sure, yeah. So, I projected slightly lower. He projected slightly higher. So we're somewhere in the middle, we'll call it. And then the PERS employer rates are increasing as well. And I think that's worth noting because I know we hit on it every time, but I've thought about it and I've gone back and looked, and every budget presentation I've done, they've actually adopted a higher rate. So I keep saying they're going up and then they continue to go up more. And of course, I'm just taking, what the state's projecting it's going to be. But at the same time, I go, well, it's probably important to stay on top of that. So the PERS rates are continuing to go up. So if you look, these are our assumptions, right? As we know, from a higher level, from a board level, from a superintendent level, we're always looking at assumptions because that's what makes a budget. So if we look at those cost of living adjustments, those have been updated, right? So you see that big 0.76 in 24-25. If you look at enrollment projections, those have gone up a little bit. You look at next year, we're actually projecting an increase in enrollment. That's exciting. We're seeing it at the site level too. We're seeing these early enrollments coming in. It's looking like the 9th grade class for next year is going to be massive. And it's looking like the 7th grade class is going to be huge at Windsor Middle School. So that's just exciting to see all those kids already starting to enroll. And then I know Target River has been kicking butt, let's say.
Austin, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just so I understand.
Yes.
You see a big bump up in 2024, but then you see that decrease in 2025?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So in 2024, you kind of see that bump up. A lot of that is because of we accounted for the travel students coming in immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when I'm budgeting, I also want to be realistic in the fact of if these developments do not happen and we start to see that decline again, I'm going to go back to what's been happening historically. And so we've been losing about 150 students on average. And so that we kind of fall back onto that trend. And that trend, that little small bump, does take into account kind of where current grade levels are at. So we see the bump in all those grade levels for that increase in students. And then as they go on, they start to trickle out. So like a good example that I could give you is we have roughly between 150 and 200 students in like our first, second graders. If you include Callie and Maddie, like let's just take second grade, you have roughly 270, 280 students. Well, right now, do you know what our 9th grade is at the high school? Is it 450? Yeah, 430, 450. Yeah. Yeah. So you get it though. It's over 400 in high school, but then at our second grade levels. So as that smaller starts to move up, we have those higher class sizes drop off and then decrease in enrollment. That's how it happens.
Except you're right. So if we have in second grade, there's 300 kids, just say.
Yeah.
So that would be the equivalent of 1,200 kids at the high school. Yet we have 1,700 kids at the high school, which is just reinforces my feeling that Windsor is slightly becoming and going to be more of a regional high school because a lot of kids from all around the area also come in. So we have our core kids that come up to the program, and then in some of them in 6th and 7th grade, they start coming into the middle school, and then at the high school age, then they're in because they want to have that the programs and the culture that we've provided. So we have to make sure that we continue to do that. Otherwise, we're going to end up being El Molino.
Right.
And we know where that happened, right? Some great kids that graduated from there, that school's gone.
Haven't heard
So
I'm just
anyhow,
kidding, Rich.
keep going. School of champions.
And then of course our attendance percentages. So it dropped slightly this year from our P1 attendance. We already had one of the attendance is broken up into two different categories. So three, but no one looks at the third. So we have the first section, the second section of attendance. We already have our first data point for attendance, and it was slightly lower than we had projected. And this is actually what's interesting about that data point is Jeremy and I have been doing budget roadshows at all the schools, making sure that all the school sites are understanding of where we're at, right? That we're taking a big risk and hoping that, we get an increase in enrollment. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at significant cuts in the future. But with that being said, one thing that they've all pointed out is teachers are going, what can we do to help with the attendance? And it's awesome to see that they're asking those questions. And we've brought up the fact that we do a district-wide thing and we're like, but they don't want to hear from us, right? And the teachers go, no, they want to hear from us, and it's cool to see that. So our unduplicated percentage, there it is. We fought for that 1% this year. It's projected to keep going. We have plans in the future to try to keep that. I have plans to try to increase that in the future. I think I keep seeing little opportunities, but hopefully that will be at 55% at one point. We can get a big bump. Anyway, Brian, next slide. So all those assumptions equal a budget. And so this is what our budget's currently at.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
go ahead, Molly.
I just feel like we're running out of time because it's almost 10:15. So can we let Austin finish and maybe move some of the other items to?
There's only one item that can be moved. The other ones are time sensitive. They should be very quick, but they do have to be voted on.
Okay,
But one item
fine.
could be
Then
tabled.
that's fine. Then do we need to extend the time?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to extend the time 15 minutes contingent on Rich not telling any more stories.
Well, I second that.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Meadow, help me. Come on, we gotta vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Yeah,
I didn't hear you.
You did.
I'm sorry.
You guys are jealous you got the
Okay,
story.
let's go. Okay, all in favor?
I'm just going to hit the main points I want you guys to know. We're just looking at unrestricted here. And last time I was up here, Bill made a great point of we got to look at that ending fund balance in that third year, right? And we're quickly coming up on adopted. So we need to understand what it's going to look like if there's a fourth year on there. So anyway, and of course, we have not settled for a raise with either labor union in that third year. So of course, we would like there to be money available to hopefully be able to do something with that.
This is not a story, but Austin, what does it cost us with the step and column?
Mm-hmm.
So with the COLA that we're gonna get, which is what, 0.7 or something like that?
0.76, yeah.
Does just the step and column by itself eat all of that up and then some?
Yes, I can tell you yes for sure on that. How much, the exact dollar amount, I'd have to look.
But we usually project around 1%, correct, Austin?
Yeah,
That's what I remember.
That's what it was, yeah.
But also, Rich, you forget that part of next year's settlement is that we're increasing the beginning teacher salary. So that eats into 0.33% of that 0.76% COLA. So really, it's what is that, 0.41? So that's what it is. And then I believe step and column is roughly a 1%. So we'll be negative money next year compared to what we're required to give.
Austin, I was wondering if you can explain that line that says excess. Does that mean that we're going to be in a deficit?
Yes,
over
good
multiple
question. So the
years?
parentheses mean a deficit, and thank you for stalling. I looked it up. It's 350,000 is the cost, and cost 1% is 370,000. So it's roughly the cost 1%. So it does eat it up. The excess is, if it's in parentheses, that's a negative, right? So we receive 35 million in revenues, 38 million in expenditures. That's going to give you a $3 million deficit.
And this was the number that we knew we were going to be faced with. What we settled, his projections were correct.
Yeah.
And this is where we're at. So we're really hoping for an increase in enrollment. That's what we were always banking on.
Yeah. And the one change from first interim to now is if you look at 24, 25, some of the actions that we have taken thus far have helped that number come down a little bit. Next slide, Brian. This is the fund balance. The only thing I'm going to touch upon here is if you look at unassigned, one of the things that we knew going into this year was that we had a decent amount of unassigned balance come 25, that's projecting to be gone. So that is one thing I want to touch upon now. Of course, restricted, committed, or assigned, that means that they are dedicated to a very specific purpose and they can't be used for anything else. Unassigned is that they're free and can be used for what we decide. So next slide, Brian. Cali is not deficit spending nearly as much, but they are still deficit spending. Of course, they follow a lot of what we're doing. Their attendance percentages are roughly the same as the districts. And so we're seeing a lot of the same financial things at Cali County McCack as we are seeing with the district.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I thought that because their enrollment is always high, meaning that there's a waiting list.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're in a deficit.
Good question. So the good and the bad with Cali is that their enrollment is always so high and they're always going to max out on their enrollment. The bad with Cali though is because they're a charter school, if their attendance goes down, like so for instance, during the pandemic, when their attendance was 91%, they don't get any of the safety nets that the district gets. So the district, if our attendance goes down, we can get funded off the previous year. Cali doesn't get that option. They're funded off the current year no matter what. So when they have an attendance hit, just like the district currently has, the district has a little bit of a safety net. Cali does not. Cali takes that full hit. And so that even though their enrollment is not going down, that's part of the reason why you don't see as much of a deficit ongoing, but they still have a deficit because their attendance, they recognize the full hit, if that makes sense.
I see. So this is basically an impact or an after effect of the pandemic.
Correct. They felt more of an after effect of the pandemic. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I know I'm going
less
quick too.
experience, but quickly, obviously there's a decrease significantly in the deficit from 24, 25 to 25, 26.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, most of our implementation or all of the things we're cutting will be cut next year. I know, but I think it's the same for the overall budget. And you said we haven't decided on the increase in the or settlement for 25, 26. So is this
correct?
Up in the air in the sense that we don't know how much we're going to have to spend on that?
Correct. So, the state in that 25, 26 year, they issued, right now the assumption is roughly a 3% cost of living. And so we get, basically what that means is we get 3% more per student, right? And so I will say typically, and I would be the same way, if I am a labor group, I'd want a raise because that cost of living is because inflation's going up, correct? So I need to be able to live. So that's what we're talking about is we're getting that 3% more to help balance out that budget. But on the flip side, we know we're going to have to, compensate people as well.
So Kai, we don't include that 3% increase, right? Because if we did, that would be another however much. I don't know what Cali's hit is, $100,000. So that'd be another 300,000 in the hole if we assumed a 3% increase. There's no step and column. There's a lot of different factors that go in.
Good question, Kai. Next slide, Brian. That's it. Any questions?
I'll make a motion.
And Stephanie.
Second with no story.
All right, all in favor?
Do any?
Aye.
Do we want to take public comment first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment? Nope. Okay, so it looks like that passes.
I propose we table 5.8. That's a discussion. That's not a.
It is. I just want to say this one thing, and I think you guys are addressing it, is that the interdistricts that get pulled, they have a pathway back.
Yes.
Yeah, that was, I know you guys are developing it. That was the main thing that we don't have to, we just table it.
So here's what I would say for the next 4. I think you need to vote on each one individually, but really the mechanism for all these things is the same. It's just a different name in each one. Let's vote on each one individually because I can't remember for sure if you can take these as a block. Sure. So let's just do them one by one. Yeah. But maybe explain it all, Pete, and then we could just take each item.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. 5.9 through 5.12 are consideration for approval of a resolution 2024-19 through 2024-22 in the matter of pre-retirement certificated part-time employment, affectionately known as the Willie Brown, which is a voluntary reduction in FTE. So each of these represents an individual who's requested a reduction in FTE. 5.9, 5.10, 5.11 are all 0.2 reductions, and 5.12 is a 0.4 reduction. And they each have their own resolution, and so will each need their own roll call. So 5.9 is Laura Gonzalez, reduction of 0.2.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
Do we need to see if there's any public comment on any of these?
Kelly, are you going to have public comment on any of these? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Second that motion.
Okay, and this is a roll call?
Yeah. There are resolutions, right? Yep, you got to do it.
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Meadow Graves.
Yes.
Kai Arce.
Yes.
We're on 5.10.
5.10 is a reduction of 0.2 for Diana Rudisil.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Meadow Graves.
Yes.
Kai Arce.
Yes. 5.11 is a reduction of 0.2 for Jeff Agresti. This is resolution 2024-21.
Make a motion we approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad. Paul Cagorno. Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Meadow Graves.
Yes.
Kai Arce.
Yes. And
5.12 is a reduction of 0.4 for Susanna Pfeffer, which is resolution 2024-22.
And I make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Malinali Lopez. Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Cagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Meadow Graves.
Yes.
Kai Arce.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Shoot, we got 6 minutes still.
No, we
Rick.
don't. No, we don't.
I wanted to.
We're gonna skip 6.1 and then we're going on to 7.1.
Yeah.
He's taking over the meeting.
No, does anybody have future board meeting items?
No.
Nope,
We're just going to.
not right now.
Everyone else to leave. How about Taco Bell? I'm just kidding.
We don't have to go back into close this time.
No,
Yeah,
no, we have salmon at home waiting, so.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I just have one and maybe we could talk more about this next time, but I did want to propose that we have some kind of unified communications plan for the board to look at, just because since we're a complex school district, there's a lot of pieces to our communication plan. So for example, it's not just PR and marketing, but for example, we also have crisis communication and also intra communication within the district. So I just thought it'd be good for the board to look at all the pieces, how they fit in together, so that we all understand how these things flow. So it's really more for our understanding and education.
Okay.
So that is all, but other than that, we could call this meeting to adjournment.
So moved. That move. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Aye, in favor?
Let's go.
All right.
She was fast.